Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 7 o'clock, and I now call to order the special town meeting for November 14th, 2017. Madam Town Clerk is the one legal.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the call has been posted according to the bylaws of the town of Upton and the Mass General Law of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fleming, as chairman, if you could.
We would all rise to pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Since we have a pretty big crowd here tonight, I'm sure we have some new folks attending. I'll go through the usual routine that I do at the annual town meeting. So, let's see, we have visitors here, so I'll read those names off at the moment. Andrew St. George, Janice Nowicki, Kenny Costa, Paul Marchand, Justin Francis, Daniel Franson, and Sean Haley. Daniel Franson and Sean Haley are Boy Scouts, so they're here probably with the idea of getting a merit badge. So we all have to be on our best behavior so that they see how the meeting's supposed to go. Thank you very much. Oh, but we have another Boy Scout too, which I'll go to. That's great. Let's see, Michelle Sanford from Town Crier, Lauren Goldberg, Town Council. Help me out here. Madam Town Clerk, what's his name? The Boy Scout? Oh, Eric Rapichko? Thank you. He's a Boy Scout also. Derek Brandisi. New town manager. Let's give Derek Brandisi a hand, everybody. Matthew Batchel, the library. Vincent Roy, Department of Public Works. And Kenny Costa, the accountant. We have a motion to accept all those visitors. Move to second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting these visitors, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. All right, so those of you who are here for your first time at town meeting, if you could please stand. We have some new ones, or is everybody a visitor? Is everybody a veteran? New person, very good. Thank you very much for coming. And please come again. Very good. So here's the general format of the meeting. We have a warrant that's been posted 14 days ahead of time. It's also online now. That warrant contains all the articles that will be discussed here this evening, and those will also be up on the screen. I'll mention an article number to come up, and somebody will then come forward and make a motion from that article. I'll ask for a second. I'll ask the Finance Committee for their recommendation if there's any financial nature on the particular motion. Also, if it is something that's, let's say, the Planning Board has to comment on, I'll ask them. The Capital Budget Committee or the Community Preservation Committee. So we'll get all those recommendations, then after that, we will then open it up to discussion. The individual who makes the motion always has the first bite of the apple, so they have the first opportunity to talk about whatever they want to with regard to what their motion is. Okay. Now, we only have one microphone down here. This is where everyone speaks from. So, if you're sitting there saying to yourself, I know I'm going to say something tonight, we got plenty of seats down here, so please move over here so that when you do have to speak, you can get to the microphone quickly. And you especially want to make sure you get to the microphone before somebody gets in line that might want to move the question. So it is to your advantage, if you know you're going to speak, sit near the microphone. And then just get in line as things move along. So only one person can speak at a time. And this is a real important thing because the only way to keep order is to have one person speaking at a time and having the rest of us listen to that individual. Okay? And then if I haven't mentioned it yet, take your cell phones, please, or any kind of electronic devices, put those on pause so that they won't ring during the meeting. If you need to make a phone call, please just head out the back and make your phone call out there as quietly as you can, turn it back off, and come back in. I know we have electronic stuff at town meeting now, that's just fine, but it cannot be an integral part of the town meeting unless we're putting things on the screen. Okay, thank you. So, one person at a time. If you can't hear the person, you can say, Mr. Moderator, point of order, I can't hear the person, and we'll ask them to speak loud. So, one last thing I want to talk about, control of the meeting. So, if I determine that it becomes necessary to ask a speaker to stop talking, I will simply say, sir or madam, stop speaking and step back from the microphone. If necessary, I will warn them of the infraction that occurred. I will then ask them if they can continue in an appropriate manner. If they say yes, I will allow them to do that. If the infraction continues, I will then ask the individual to take their seat. If they don't take their seat, I will ask them to leave the meeting. If they choose not to leave the meeting, I will then ask the officer in the back to remove them from the meeting. And it will all be recorded for the town of Upton to see live. And after that, on repeat. So, I've been doing this a long time. I've never come close to having anybody have to leave the meeting. Once or twice, I'd have to ask someone to sit down, but again, once or twice over 25 years, that's not too bad. Many moderators in the state have had to have people leave the meeting. We don't want to start that, and we certainly don't want to start it tonight. There are a lot of important issues to come forward, but even the little issues are just as important as the big ones, because there's somebody here who wants to talk about that issue maybe, even though it may not be big for you, it may be big for somebody else. So be patient, listen, then we vote, and that's pretty much how it goes. Any questions before we go? Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, sir.
What's the difference between an annual town meeting and a special town meeting?
Good question. Annual town meeting always happens in May. Okay, at the moment, it's always the first Thursday in May after the election. And that's when we do the annual budget. Okay, for things for the school, the police department, the things that you deal with every single year. A special town meeting, like this one, is when you deal with things that come up during the year, things that you can't wait for the annual to talk about. So that's why we have a special town meeting. The only real difference is the posting. Posting for a special town meeting requires 14 days. Posting for the annual town meeting only requires 7 days, because everyone knows that that happens annually, and they expect that to. That's essentially the only real difference between the two. So, anything else? Okay, great, let's begin. Who has the motion for Article 1? Mr. Doherty?
Good evening. I move that the town vote to amend Title II, Chapter 25, revolving funds of the general bylaws by inserting Section 8 as written on the 2017 special town meeting warrant.
Second? Second. Move and second. Doherty? Thank you very much. To amend Title II, Chapter 25 of the revolving funds. Any discussion on that? Okay. Yes, sir. If you come to the microphone, please. State your name and address also. I forgot to mention that. First time at the microphone, state your name and address. Thank you.
Ralph Whitney, 11 Hartford Ave North. So this is basically for Article 8.
No, this is Section 8. It changes Section 8. Mr. Doherty, could you speak to that, please?
We're changing Section 8 in the bylaws, which is trying to make it a little bit more transparent, if people like to hear. It's
All right,
supposed to
give me a
post it.
minute. I gotta look at this.
Okay.
We just want to spell out, like, the people spend, how they spend it in the revolving fund.
Great.
Oh,
Any other
I
discussion?
do have a question on that. As a matter of fact. You've got a lot of things here, I'm sorry.
Understand? That's fine.
All right. I was reading through this real quick, as much time as I had. And you're putting funds into a, recreation, not the recreational fund, not the recreational, this preservation?
Well,
Revolving preservation fund.
this is,
All right, there must be a lot of money in there, because you people are taking a lot of money out of that to pay prior bills.
okay, I don't know if this relates to this particular
We're not
article,
taking
but
any money out of this,
Got
we're
it.
just using free cash for the bills tonight.
Free cash, which is coming from where?
Leftover money from last.
From other funds.
keep in mind, this particular motion, all it does is talk about how it is that it will be reported. It doesn't talk about spending money at all. It talks about how that will be reported.
And I'll wait till I get to that question.
There you go. Very good. Any other discussion?
Mr. Moderator, John Robertson on Mechanic Street. I think I was in a way responsible for this because at the annual town meeting, I made an amendment and it was requested that we would draw the amendment and at this first meeting, special meeting, it would be looked over by the attorneys and everything and it would be put back on. So what this relates to is there's a number of revolving accounts. Revolving accounts are accounts in different departments in which they can receive monies in different forms and spend those monies. And the question is, how can they be audited? And so this article defines how they will be audited. That is, each one, I think there's about 6 of them now, each one can individually report their receipts and their expenditures, or an alternative would be that the accountant puts it in there. But they will be these little separate businesses audited and put in the town report so everybody can see when the money comes in and the money goes out.
Very good. Anything else on that?
Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, Mr.
This
Doran.
isn't really an audit. Can I let the town attorney speak on it?
Okay, yeah. Madam Town Council.
Mr. Moderator, thank you, 3 of you. Just to be clear, all of the town's accounts are audited by the auditor as part of an audit of the way the town spends all of its money and accounts for all of its money. What this article does is limited to imposing a reporting requirement. And so there's going to be a reporting requirement so that each year in the annual town report, there will be a record of the amounts that came into and went out of the revolving fund. That would be available in any event as a public record. This puts it in the annual report, and that's all this does.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 2. Anybody have the motion for Article 2? Mr. Bullock.
Ken Milwaukee, 15 Hickory Lane, Treasurer Collector. I move that town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to pay bills from a prior fiscal year pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 64, to take any action relative thereto.
Second, moved and seconded. Mr. Bullock, can I have this, please? Okay. Yes, Mr. Flaherty.
Paul Flaherty, Bass Street. So moderator, through you, might I inquire of the manager, I thought this was going to be a free cash transfer. I believe the motion says raise and appropriate. He did read it, raise and appropriate.
And it's been marked up, but he did read raise and appropriate. So the question is, what should it be? Should it be raise and appropriate or from free cash? Want to answer that? Okay, it's supposed to be transferred from free cash. Mr. Milwaukee, is that fine with you since you're the one who made the motion?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, fine. So that is what we call a friendly amendment. It will be from free cash instead of raising and appropriate. FinCom, second? Excuse me.
Yes, we'll second it.
And-
Favorable action, Mr.
And
Moderator.
favorable action, thank you very much. Okay. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Charlotte Cook, 43 Mendon Street. I'm just wondering what these $10,000 worth of just unnamed bills are for.
Okay. What's the money being used for? This whole,
These were bills that we received after the books were closed. It was from debit cards, so statements that were coming in exceeded the 30 days, and consequently, the account had closed the books, and so we have this as a hanging balance.
okay. Anything else on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, this
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the town zoning bylaw by adding a new section 6.7, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments, as written on the 2017 special town meeting warrant.
Okay, so Mr. Fleming, the question for you then. So your motion is exactly what is written here, correct?
Yes.
Without the, or taking other action relative there to apply?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So, what we'll do is, I'll open it up to discuss, well, first I'll ask if there's a second.
Second.
There's a second, okay. So, you've had a chance to read through this. At least the warrant has been out for 2 weeks, so scan through it if you wish to. Do we need a planning board recommendation? Okay, planning board?
Gary Bohan, 17 Juniper Road, Planning Board. Planning Board recommends favorable action.
Okay, favorable action by the planning board. So, is there any discussion on this motion? Dr. Taylor?
I had a little bit of discussion regarding the motion. There are two things that you have to bear in mind. First, if this is approved, is there a downside to it? And the second thing is there already on the books in the zoning bylaws a bylaw that would take care of the recreational marijuana place of business? I'd like to address the first issue, first of all, about the downside. I think there's a significant downside that has not been addressed at all. As regards marijuana, a lot of people talk about it, but it is a cash cow. I don't know if anybody read the Wall Street Journal, but about 2 weeks ago, the people that own Corona Beer, there's Modelo Corporation, they bought a 10% interest in the biggest cannabis grower in Canada. It was in the journal, and they said that the cannabis industry in both Canada and the United States is on the brink of becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry. Last April, or May, I'm sorry, last July, Colorado, which actually was one of the first states along with Washington to legalize recreational marijuana, reported their income from recreational marijuana. The income was $500 million, $504 million. That is distributed throughout the state. It does not count what the individual localities were able to get out of the taxing. Now, on the 26th of July of this year, Governor Baker signed into law the new marijuana bill, and what he did was said there was 20% tax on recreational marijuana, but 3% of that stays with the town. So whenever a locality elects to go ahead and put the recreational marijuana place in the town, they'll get 3% right off the top. 17% goes to the states, to the state of Massachusetts. Also in Colorado, and this is going to happen in Massachusetts, those communities that do not want to have marijuana in their community will not partake in the distribution of the state's 17%. In Colorado's area, if you've opted not to join the marijuana group, you don't get any portion of that 17% pie. It's going to happen in Massachusetts. Right now, if we vote this thing in, the downside is the following. One, we will not be able to get 3% because we won't have it in town, number one. And number two, the 17% that the state collects from recreational marijuana, we won't pay that at all. So we're going to have a double-digit loss. Now, when you talk about recreational marijuana, Colorado has been around a long time, and the new commissioner, Steve Hoffman, who came back from his vacation in Breckenridge, Colorado, said that the average store, retail establishment, sells between, well, the sales amount somewhere between $5,000 and million a year. 3% of that comes out to $150,000 to $200,000 per year that could go into the treasury of the town of Albany. I strongly recommend, based on that, and our taxes now are $18.74 per thousand. That kind of infusion in capital every year would drop that $18 really far down. Thank you.
Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Moderator, if I can address the previous speaker, this is not a vote on whether Upton should have marijuana facilities. This is a vote to ask you to put in a moratorium. The purpose of the moratorium is to allow the local boards and officials to have time to digest the law and make recommendations. Any action beyond that will come back to this town meeting vote for any action, whether you are in favor or against marijuana. All this is doing is saying, let's put the brakes on, the law just passed and it's still ambivalent, let's let the citizens and the committees and officials of this town have time to digest it and make recommendations to the voters that are more logical. If we fail to act tonight, then you have taken no action and simply means that the law will allow it to take effect as the state so deems necessary. I would ask counsel if you'd like to address this. Obviously, he has more legal experience than I do on this.
May I answer, Mr. Fleming?
Well, I mean, let's let the town council speak, and then we'll see where we go from there. Madam Town Council.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. What's proposed in this article is a temporary zoning provision to allow time for a planning process. As you all know, there was a vote at the November election last year to authorize the sale, distribution, growth, and testing of non-medical marijuana in Massachusetts. In early summer, there was a compromise bill approved by the General Court and signed by the governor that also that clarified some of those provisions, and in particular, the local control provisions were addressed. Local control means that a town has the ability to decide whether and whether it wants to have recreational marijuana be able to be sold, grown, manufactured, or tested in the town, and if so, where those establishments should be located. What this does is none of those things. This is a temporary provision to allow time for the town to explore those issues. The expectation would be that the Cannabis Control Commission issues regulations in early spring and begins accepting licenses in April. If at that time the town has no zoning that addresses the location of non-medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, then a marijuana facility could go anywhere in town. It would be essentially an unregulated use. So what this is saying is choose to impose a temporary zoning provision, a moratorium, and moratoriums are used for all sorts of purposes in the zoning context to allow for a planning process. Particularly in the non-medical marijuana context, the issues that cities and towns have been faced with is the lack of regulations issued by the state. And because of the condensed time frame, those regulations, as you know, the Cannabis Control Commission was just discussed, was just recently appointed. They just appointed a director. They haven't met or promulgated their regulations yet. Following the promulgation of those regulations, cities and towns will be able to react more specifically to the planning process. Again, if there, as was indicated earlier, if the town wants to ban recreational marijuana in this town, you will need to have both a zoning bylaw that proposes a ban and a ballot question, because any town that voted yes on question 4 has to approve a ban at the ballot. So a permanent ban can only be approved by a vote of this town meeting through adoption of a bylaw, and then that same bylaw would appear on the ballot at a town election. Now, this moratorium goes through December 31, 2018, and that is the very last day that the Attorney General will approve these moratorium for. Okay, that's as far forward as they'll allow those moratorium to extend. So all you're being asked to do today, as was explained, is to put in place a temporary limitation on the locating of marijuana establishments in this town, recreational marijuana establishments.
Thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Chairman?
I would like to add something incorrect. Number one, this article wouldn't be on if the town of Upton had voted against it. 2,503 voters in this town voted in favor of question 4 in the last election. In 2002, voted against it. The commissioner said, and it's a record, that those towns that voted against it, the selectmen could do whatever they want. They don't have to have an article such as Article 3. But those towns that voted for it, which is our town, needed an article such as this. That's number one. Number two, recreational marijuana is a retail store, comes under the same heading, I would believe, as a package store. Package store sells liquors, and they are there for recreational purposes. They have a limit in terms of age, 21. The same applies to recreational marijuana. The loss of income by kicking this can down the road, which is what this article is doing a disservice to the entire town. $200,000 per year as income would certainly impact our tax rate in a very positive way. It would go down. I see no reason for this article. We already have a zoning bylaw on the books which deals with package stores. Recreational marijuana is no more and no less than a package store.
Good, thank you. Anyone else, sir? Such a big matter.
Patrick Hurley, 13 Whitney Lane. I completely agree with the previous speaker. My assessment of this is that it prevents us from being an early adopter. If that happens, I think it may restrict some businesses that we would like to have here. I believe the town really needs some business revenue that we don't have. We look at our income, where it comes from. It's all from the taxpayers like me. So I'm in favor of not having this moratorium and get right on with securing the right businesses with the right restrictions that are already on the books. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to move William Andrews, 84 High Street. I'd like to move the question, please.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded to move the question, which basically means, if you're done hearing anything, I know. I'm sorry about that.
You said get in line with me.
I know. You see, you didn't get in line in front of Mr. Andrews. So, wait a minute. You do have a chance. If less than 2/3 of the people want to keep talking about, I mean, we'll see. We'll just see how it goes. So, this is what this motion means. If you don't want to talk any more about this, then you say, yes, let's vote to move the question. If you still want to hear more, then you say no, and you vote against this. That's what the vote is that we're going to vote on right now. It does require a 2/3 majority vote, and I will call it by sound, okay, because that's how I'm going to do that for this particular one. So does everyone understand what this vote is now? If you're done talking about it, you vote yes. If you want to talk more about it, you vote no. So, all those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. We keep talking about it. So, sir, now, after a little while, if you want to do this again, you can. Okay, but we only talked about it for a few minutes, so go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm Peter Scandoni, 16 Rockwood Lane, in New Upton. I really love it here. I'm all for your moratorium. I'm against recreational marijuana in Upton. Recreational marijuana that's sold today is very different than some of us might remember from our college days. Today, what you're buying is purified THC concentrate, 10 to 20 times more powerful than the marijuana available years ago, when many of us were in college. THC is the mind-altering chemical that produces euphoria. I recently listened to the head of the emergency department at Milford Regional Medical Center, Dr. Jeffrey Hopkins, at a Milford Cares Forum. I heard him say that legalized recreational marijuana shops will be like pouring gasoline on the already burning fire of mental illness and substance abuse in the community, meaning Upton as well. He went on to say that there's a huge mental health and substance abuse problem in our community. His emergency room facility went from 30 beds and 10,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet and 50 beds within the past year. And they were required to provide 10 beds for behavioral health or safe beds due to substance abuse. Says 20% of beds have to be safe rooms for psychiatric substance abuse emergencies. So at this stage, I don't think you need any more studies. With the opioid crisis plaguing our community, why would anyone want an introductory high-potency drug sold in our town? What about the impact on school children? It's going to create a perception for students that because it's legal, it's safe. How about downtown? That attracts people from other communities to come to Upton to purchase that product. As I understand it, Milford, Holliston, Medway, and Southwood have banned pot shops. Hopkinton and Ashland have enacted moratoriums. I'm not sure where Hopedale stands. I think they're accepting it. And now Upton is currently reviewing how to proceed. So I don't want to see Upton become a pot central. People say do it for the money. That's fool's gold. Let's say you have a business that does $500,000 a year. The most you can get is 3% of the original sales price. And this is all dealing in cash. You're going to get $15,000 from that. Is that going to benefit our town? The collateral damages and costs you're going to get from dealing with these businesses and the associated problems, this money will be exhausted. And I say, yes, refer to Colorado and Washington to see what's going on. They've incurred more problems and have had to employ more police and counseling because of it.
Thank you. Next.
Brett Simus, 7 Barbers Path. I'll be brief. The Attorney General okayed and supports and allows these types of moratoriums. As people have stated, the moratorium is for 1 year only until December 31st of next year. The tax revenue impact, obviously, if any, would be fairly limited. As of right now, the State Commission hasn't yet made a determination on an exclusion for the tax revenue regarding whether you allow a pot shop or not. So that's a possibility, but it hasn't been enacted yet. And so given the fact that there's an uncertainty around whether or not that will be enacted, and we don't know if there'll be any impact to tax revenue, combined with the fact that this is just for a year, combined with the fact that the town isn't sure about what the end result will be, I just wanted to get some of those facts out there. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, to be clear, one of the previous speakers is speaking to whether we should have marijuana is sale in Upton or we should have marijuana. The voters already said yes. What this is doing is asking us for 1 year to assess the situation, to prevent things that many of us probably do not want. Because if we don't put this moratorium in, as council said, they can open anywhere, they can do anything. We have no town regulations to stop, which means near schools, churches, nursery schools, whatever. All we're asking, 1 year moratorium. We're not saying against marijuana or for marijuana. This is saying 1 year. The voters said they want it, so let's assess how we're going to let it impact our town. Thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, I've been a physician for 50 years. I want to put to rest this whole business of marijuana, cannabis, pot, call it whatever you want. People are going to be addicted. I can have 1 drink a week, that's all I
Point of order, Mr.
Okay,
Moderator.
no,
Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Fleming, you've had your chance.
Dr. Taylor, relax. I'm going to let you finish, but you got to finish quickly, because you've
Okay.
already spoken twice on this.
All right,
So,
All right, let me put to rest about the dangers of marijuana.
Well,
Okay?
there's a lot of discussion on that, so just make it quick.
And Colorado has shown a decrease. Hoffman said that probably they're selling the quiet type of marijuana and people are staying home. There are no increases in crime. There is nobody being harmed by it. That's number one.
But this doesn't deal with that. This just deals with the moratorium.
Now let's talk
Finish
about
up.
the moratorium. All right.
Finish up.
The town of Athol just passed an ordinance, they're allowing a marijuana grower to rent space in an old mill of 50,000 square feet to grow marijuana. They're being proactive. We don't really need any moratorium. We know what the drug does. We know it's been legalized. We do have on the books zoning bylaws referable to package stores, and legal and marijuana stores are no more than package stores. What are we going to do? We're going to study it, and we're going to lose income, and we're going to be frozen out because we're not proactive. The law's on the books. We ought to be proactive like Athol and try to get a place to put the marijuana and encourage people to come in.
Sir?
Edward Berkman, 6 Shore Drive. The previous speaker said that marijuana shops were equivalent to package stores.
A little closer,
The
sir.
previous speaker said that marijuana shops were equivalent to package stores, implying that the same laws apply. The question is, there are a number of laws that govern package stores. Do they actually all apply to marijuana businesses?
That's a fair question. Town council, could you address that in any way on this?
Mr. Moderator, the answer is no, they don't. There are different laws,
So
different
they are
statutory
different.
schemes.
So the laws are different with regard to package stores and marijuana.
So they're not equivalent in the eye of the law. There are laws or are not laws governing marijuana stores where they could be located near schools and so forth?
Mr. Moderator?
Yep.
At this time, there are no state laws that regulate where a marijuana retail establishment, manufacturer, testing facility, et cetera, can be located. There are expected to be, as part of the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations, some guidelines in this area. It has not yet been issued, so we do not have the advantage of being able to review them.
So it would be prudent to wait for those laws to be enacted to see if in fact they're acceptable or onerous.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
What will happen is that the regulations issued by the Cannabis Control Commission are anticipated to set up a framework for the types of regulations that municipalities can enact. With that being said, some municipalities are making zoning decisions currently, some are not. That's a policy decision about what's best for the town. One thing that I do want to point out, and I don't recall whether it was mentioned previously, but the fact that the body chooses, if the body were to choose tonight to adopt a moratorium, doesn't prohibit the town from revisiting that decision before the end of the moratorium if it's determined that there is an appropriate location or if the regulations that are issued provide immediate light on the situation as to what makes the most sense.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Sir?
One other point. The previous speaker said that it's a cash cow and quoted revenue numbers and so forth. I'm a little surprised as a physician that he didn't also tell you that the state of Washington incurred extremely high medical costs as a result of children getting into their parents' marijuana and as a result of auto accidents. Same is true in Colorado. So yes, it's a cash cow, but there's an expense associated with it, so that it's not all pure revenue.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, seems like we don't have it. Fine. So, this is what's going to happen. We're going to vote on this. If you vote yes, that means you're in favor of the moratorium, and that will go until December 31st, 2018. At least that's what this is. And if in the future that would be changed, that's at a different meeting. If you vote no, that means you do not want any moratorium.
Point of order.
Yes, Dr. Taylor.
Does this take a 2/3 majority?
I was just going to get to that. Yes, this does require a 2/3 majority vote because we're changing the zoning bylaws. Okay? So is everybody clear on what you're voting for? Yes for moratorium, no for not a moratorium. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion from Article 3 to set up a temporary moratorium signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The motion carries by 2/3 majority. Article 4.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Ron Goodale, 16 Thayer Street. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $28,000 for the purchase of a breathing air compressor for the fire department.
Second? Moved and seconded, FinCom recommendations?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, we also have a recommendation from the Capital Budget Committee.
Favorable action.
Favorable action by the Capital Budget and the FinCom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 5.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $9,750 for the planning board to participate in the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission Planning Board Assistance Bill.
Second? Second. Moved and seconded. Gary? I need the card, please. Thank you. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 6. Yeah.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain, and upon such terms and conditions as it deems appropriate, such temporary and permanent easements for highway, utility, and other purposes in lands along Hartford Ave, North High Street, Hopkins Road, as are needed to carry out the proposed reconstruction/improvement of Hartford Ave, North High Street, Hopkins Road, in the locations more or less shown on the right-of-way plan prepared for such project, and to transfer from free cash the sum of $180,000 as may be required for the acquisition for these.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Mr. Doherty, you said 180,000. Should it be 181?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's 181. Moved and seconded. And this was from, let me make sure. It's from free cash, okay? FinCom recommendation.
Another question, Mr. Moderator. FinCom's position was it was $100,000 raised appropriate, $81,000 from free cash.
Okay, so therefore, let's ask the question.
Did that get changed?
Yes, it did.
All right.
It
Then
was
we're good.
voted in the minutes as everything was free cash.
Okay, so the motion is 181,000 from free cash. So Finance Committee, did you want time to discuss this?
I corrected myself, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, so is it favorable action by?
Yes.
Okay, favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion? Mr. Herron.
Alfred Homer, 48 Mechanic. We're pounding on free cash pretty heavy. I was just curious what the number is in free cash.
We can't hear.
So
The number in free cash.
The question is, how much money is left in free cash?
1.4 million.
Oh, town account.
Yes. In the free cash in the general fund, we have $1,407,901.
Just, if any had been taken out already, is that included?
That's the start.
That's the start. That's the beginning number. Okay. Any other discussion? I know, Mr. Doherty, you were standing, but you all set? Okay, sir, go ahead.
Okay, I already gave you, Ralph,
Yeah.
what Hartford Ave North. All right, I came to a meeting about a year ago. All right, and I talked at the time, I said, hey, you know, I live across from the Dunkin' Donuts, it's a nightmare there. All right, so apparently, from what I understand, is their way of solving that is to take the person across the street's property. All right, well, I live across the street from Dunkin' Donuts. All right, so I asked him, I said, is that your intention to take my property? All right, so he said, no, we're not doing that, we're not gonna do that, we wouldn't do that. All right, I said, you know, so it was left at that, basically. All right, now you're putting in one of this move, this in your article, that you want eminent domain and easements and permanent easements. Now, at that time, last year, I asked them about working on the road. Okay? You know, I work 12-hour days. All right? So he said, oh no, it'll be done during the working hours. About 2 weeks ago, they're working down by the street light. You know what time they started? 11 o'clock at night. You know what time they finish? 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 4, so that whole night, I did not get any sleep. All right, so now, I don't know what to believe with you people. This is what I'm looking at, is you're trying to get, you know, I mean, I work 12 hours. I don't sit around and figure out how to get things in under the radar.
So, okay. So, there's a concern about certain things that are either directly or indirectly related to this article. I don't know if anybody wanted to comment on that. Mr. Dory?
This project is about 6 years in advance. I remember the meeting you were at, sir.
Yeah.
It had to do with when they proposed downtown change of the bylaws, like the districts. That was a totally different meeting than tonight. This is a $13 million TIP project that's been going on for 6 years, and this is just our time.
Well, sir, let him finish. Okay.
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay, so.
Oh, and I can't speak for what the state does on Route 140. We have no control with that.
Well, I was told the state doesn't have to follow the laws.
Well,
I asked about that sound ordinance.
okay,
So I heard they make up their own laws.
okay. Well, Mr. Brindisi, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, I mean, certainly if he has a question, I'd love to answer it, but just let me try to give folks kind of where we're at with the TIP project. As you know, it's an $11 million project that encompasses Hartford Ave North, Hopkins Road, and High.
Speak, get a little bit closer.
Okay, so right now, what we're speaking for today is $181,000, because there will be some permanent and some temporary easements that the town's going to have to work with those property owners so that we could either take them permanently or take them on a temporary basis as the construction takes place. We hope to go out this fall with an RFP so that we can have a surveyor come in to determine exactly where that land is in those takings. As you know, there's been multiple public meetings. This is already in 100% design. So it's went through the 25%, 50%, 75% design phase. Mass DOT has held multiple public hearings. So those abutters are well aware of the project and the directions.
No, I wasn't aware of no project.
Sir, okay, sir, hang on a second. But he needs, hang on. Only one person can speak at a time, sir. So let him finish, and then if you have a question, fine. Go ahead, sir.
So where we're headed with this, we're going to hold one more public hearing in February. We'll have the surveyor there, we'll have the DPW there, we'll have the Mass DOT there, so folks know where we're headed. There's going to be a water main reconstruction project this summer. Next spring of 2019, we'll start phase 1 of the project, and then in 2020, we'll go into phase 2 of the project.
Okay, okay, great, thank you. If you have one more comment to make, that's fine, sir.
Yeah. Well, see, I wasn't aware of none of this. The only way I get a glimpse of these meetings is from some paper I decide to read somewhere. The last meeting, I got a letter in the mail, all right? And I went to the meeting, and at that time, I asked the guy, I said, are you gonna contact us? Because we're the main part of this. I asked all my neighbors, none of them got contacted, all right? I happened to see the article in the mail, in the newspaper.
I think there might be someone who has an answer. Mr. Roy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vincent Roy, Director of Public Works. I just wanted to say, sir, that we have had 2 public hearings on this project already.
Since then?
Well, let him finish.
Well, we've had 2 prior public meetings right here in this building prior to the state. Going forward, this is all about money for acquiring easements. We have 130 temporary easements, 16 permanent easements. This money is just to pay for the easements. As the town manager has stated, our game plan going forward is to have another public hearing just for the easements. And then what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the impact to all of the residents. And then once we have that public hearing, we're going to schedule meetings one-on-one with the individuals that are impacted by these easements. And so if you're one of the people that is impacted, you're going to be taking land or acquiring property, we plan on scheduling a meeting. I'm not saying that, sir, because I don't know your address.
Sir, let him finish, please.
So that is the purpose of this article. It's just to get money so we can purchase the land.
Purchase, okay.
Are you gonna state your price too? I mean, is that what happens? I'm new to this,
I understand that, and let me just say one thing.
And you,
Sir, let me finish. I know you're new, and because you're new, I'm giving you quite a bit of latitude, okay? But understand, you've got to let people finish what they're saying and allow for the rest of us to hear it, think about it before we then go back to the microphone. So, okay, thank you.
All right, let me just explain quick. So I talked about permanent easements and temporary easements. The permanent easements, there are 16 of them. It's based on square footage and what the assessed value of the property is. And that means it would be, permanent means it would become part of the public way. The temporary easement means just that where the project would have to encroach somebody's personal property, do some temporary work for landscaping and things like that, and restore the property back to its original state. And so there's a dollar figure that we have for that. It's $2 a square foot. But the purpose of bringing on the appraiser is to work with us. So we've got a rough number on what we've got right now, and that's what the appropriation is going to be for. But we won't be able to determine anything until we actually have the appraiser on board and we can have a solid number to work with. And then once that happens, that one will set the stage for negotiating one-on-one with the individual property owners to come up with a dollar number.
Okay, thank you. Sir, you've had quite a bit of time. I'll give you a little bit more.
you have a lot of writing on here, sir.
Well, you know, we have a lot of people, there's a person behind you that wants to speak as well.
That's right. I mean, you can, under the radar, that's how they do it. You're done, I don't have time for you. I got that the last meeting I was at.
Ma'am?
How's this? Okay?
That's fine.
I'm the one that yells out, I can't hear you, so if I
Oh,
can hear you.
thank you.
All right. I'm Meredith Rice, Cider Mill in Upton, but I have my practice at 130 High Street.
Yes.
Right across from the pond.
Yep.
And give me just a minute to just give you some background here.
Sure.
So, most of the time, in the wintertime, when the plowing's done, that's a wide intersection there. They come down, all the snow kind of gets moved over. But thank goodness, I've had some kind help on that, and so it's been better the last few years. But having said that, I have very little acreage there, and I have hedges there to keep the cigarette packages from coming on my lawn when they stop at Westboro Road. Now, many years ago, multiple times, this widening of this road to accommodate the other towns and all the bumping about the traffic before 95, we've had the meetings and there's been enough of us that we've defeated it. Well, I don't know how long ago it was, I want to say about maybe 10 years ago now. They had that project, this TIP project, all designed. It was on a plan. And they came to me at 130 High Street. They spread out the plot design on the trunk of my car. Larry, I forget his last name, was, Bombaro was there. Jeff Thompson was there. Everybody was there. They were a big help to me because they showed me exactly how it was going to affect me. And at first they said, we're just going to take your hedges. Well, if they take my hedges, they are on top of my septic system, okay? It's right there. So I was frightened. Obviously, I didn't like the whole idea. But then what they did was they looked across at Aldrich's, and they said, see that marker? It's going to be a line just like that. See that telephone pole? They gave me an understanding of exactly what was going to happen. I didn't feel too bad about that once I got myself understanding what was going to happen. And then they said, we don't have to take your hedges, but we might have to take a couple of feet off your driveway. And that was it. Well, now I come here for the TIP project. It's all activated again, except that this time, I walk in the door up there, and on the easel is a brand new design. Nothing like what the original one was that they explained to me. Now, I see on that plan, unless I misread it, and I'm the first one to say I might have misread it, but it looks to me like they're planning to use where my patients come in and out in front of my building for a staging area. How you can even do that without first talking to the property owners, I don't know. It's overwhelming. But having said that now, I don't know what they're planning on taking. I'm a nervous wreck on this. I don't even sleep at night because I'm thinking, now I've got this to worry about. But, thank goodness, when I talked to Mr. Brindisi, he said they were going to have a hearing. That hearing needs to happen first before this. And you said, temporary easements, okay, we'll give you a little bit of money. For the amount of that they would be taking of my temporary easement, let's say it's 20 feet by 4 feet or whatever, it's like 80 feet times $2, they give me $160? I don't think so. But that's that. But if they've got, I don't know how many people, 100 and something people, to split up $181,000, and I'm saying to myself, why do they even have to take mine? They're going to be building a retaining wall on the end of Pratt Pond. Why don't, when they come down there, you know, the least inconvenience to the owners, at least build the retaining wall and move your road that way a little bit. So that's my personal concern. Now, you had said there were 16 permanent. That means you already know who those people are. And if you already know, this one, and you're counting them up, and there's 16, then you should by now have gone to those people and said, we might be changing it, but we want to let you know so that you have a chance when you come to the town meeting to know what you're talking about. I'm guessing I'm probably one of those 16, and I'm going to ask it right now. Am I?
Okay, well.
Am I one of the
Well,
16?
you've asked him, he heard the question.
Okay, and then the rest of it I want to say is this. Article 7, which we haven't got to yet, talks about money being appropriated for a consultant. And to me, that should be first. Then after the consultant talks about the, I haven't got my glasses on, but give me a second, that's all I get to that. The consultant, let me see. Hire a consultant for expenses incidental and related to managed transportation improvement project, etc. So I'm guessing that consultant is probably going to have more to say, because I don't think it's fair to ask the whole town that doesn't live where I live or isn't going to be affected to vote on something that's personally going to affect me. I mean, I'm all for the town supporting the widening of the road if it has to be. But I think that the people that are going to be concerned with the easements, they need a whole lot more polite, courteous interaction before you bring it here. All right.
Okay,
16.
so, if, Mr. Roy, if you're comfortable answering that question, I'll allow you to, but if not, maybe someone else knows the answer.
Well, there was a lot there. I just wanted to state that the plans, as far as the plan layout, it hasn't really changed since the last public hearing that we had.
Oh, not the last public hearing, but the previous plan design is widely different.
From the original 25% design plan, I don't know, I wasn't on board then, but I know what we submitted when I first came on board, that plan has not changed. So, and that's what we had the public hearing about 2 years ago. So what was submitted to the 100% design plan with just a little bit more detail. But as far as the layout, the public right-of-way, that is all the same. Like I said, we're going to schedule meetings with each individual homeowner that's impacted by this project, and I don't want to mislead anybody here either. During the construction of this, it's going to be uncomfortable, not just for the residents there, but for commuters going up and down the road. But ultimately, once this project is complete, it's a very good project. And we're talking about stormwater improvements, sidewalks, bike lanes, as well as a road, which we all know is very beat up. So,
Am I one of the 16?
Well,
I don't know.
You said there was 16 and you don't know.
I know part of the 16, part of the 16 are the intersections and along the right-of-way. Mary, I can't tell you off the top of my head if you're one of the ones.
If I
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
great, thank you.
I want to thank you very much for being courteous to me. I appreciate it very much. And I'm hoping we can go with Article 7 and not vote on this tonight until Article 7 and the consultant gives us better information.
Okay, good. Ms. Robinson, before I allow you to speak, is there anybody from the board that wants to speak with regard to some of the other issues that may have been brought up?
Mr. Moderator, I'll try and address this as best possible. This was a process that started about 6 years ago, and it was brought before the voters to appropriate $600,000 for a test design and to go to the state with the paperwork needed for the state to take over. The Department of Transportation will control this project through its conception for construction. The town's involvement is the easements and some of the studies that need to be required for the state. This is about $11 to $12 million project, of which the state's only obligation will be the $600,000 plus this. As far as the landowners, I can't speak to that. Obviously, I don't know. It certainly would be the intent to accommodate their needs and to work with them. I know the previous speaker, there's been much conversation with her relative to her property, and I would hope there would be with others as well.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
John Robinson, Mechanic Street. I listened to the arguments here, and it would seem to me that in a way we put the cart before the horse. The Article 6 here goes ahead and takes quite severe actions. They may be good, they may be bad. But Article 7 will define what is needed. And before the people that live along High, Hartford, and Hopkinton can know exactly what happened, they should have the information that will be produced by Article 7. So I would recommend that we vote down or pass over or whatever the mechanics are, Article 6, and go ahead and vote on Article 7, and let's get some facts in there. These people live close to the road, and any permanent taken will affect them seriously. I would also note that I attended early meeting on this project, and in that meeting it was clearly said that there would be no permanent takings on Hartford and High. It said there would be probably some permanent takings on Hopkinton Road. The houses on Hopkinton Road are not situated close to the road, so it would affect them very little. But the people from Westboro Road to the center, they could have a serious problem if there is a permanent taking. Article 7 should define that. So the recommendation is to vote Article 6 down and approve Article 7 and get the facts so people will know what's going on.
Okay, so, thank you, Mr. Robinson. So I have a question for either the town manager. If for some reason the town doesn't deal with 6 now, what happens with that?
Well, first, let me answer that question, that Article 6 and 7 are not interrelated. Article 7 is dealing with another issue relative to the TIP project.
I cannot hear the...
You gotta get it closer.
Okay. So again, Article 7 and Article 6 are not interrelated.
Okay.
Okay. Article 7 deals with another matter. What we're talking about today is payment for the temporary and permanent easements. We're trying to get a timeline up so folks understand the seriousness of having to approve this tonight versus waiting until May town meeting. It would be slide 4 on the slide deck. But I'll go through it before it comes up. So what we need to do after tonight, we're going out to bid in December for our surveyor. For our surveyor to look at the easements, right? At that point, we'll have a better sense of the easements and the land takings. And then also, we'll do the water, you'll also see here, the water main replacement bid will also go up, because that's gonna happen next summer. Once we get the identified contractor, then we'll start the water main project sometime next summer. The next item, in February, we want to hold a public information meeting with all of the abutters based upon the survey that's already been completed, right? So in that room, like I mentioned earlier, with the DPW director, myself, the surveyor, the engineer who designed this, and Mass DOT and others. This way, all the affected parties, we can have all their answers, all their questions answered at that one meeting. But what you can see here is the appraisals begin in April. So what we're asking for money this evening is so we can start making payments upon those appraisals. Some will start early, some will carry us through the summer because we have 136 we have to go through. I already talked about the water replacement project, and then compensation offers will begin sometime in August after we negotiate each and one of those takings, permanent and temporary. And then you can see from the rest of the timeline, we have to record those deeds, and then we have to wait for the state to issue the right-of-way certificate in September. And then the state will they'll go out and advertise for the project, which will commence again, like I mentioned earlier, in spring of 2019. So again, why we're asking tonight is so that we can have the money in hand, so when we meet with those abutters, we have the ability to negotiate a price and make payment.
Okay, so-
I have one more thing I need to add, sir.
Okay, fine.
The other thing that we need to talk about, George, just at least mention, once the money's appropriated, the Board of Selectmen still need to authorize spending, which will be in Springtown meeting, once we've had agreements with all the homeowners or all the abutters on this project. So we come up with the agreements, we have written agreements with all the individuals that are impacted by this project. Then the Board of Selectmen will authorize the spending of that money. That'll be sometime in spring, but the timing is really critical right now for us to get the appropriation. If we don't get the appropriation now, there's a chance that we could get kicked out on the tip. Construction on the tip, it's a two-phase project. Phase one is 2019. We could get kicked out a year if we don't have the money in hand to start negotiating come January, February. And that's our game plan now. To get negotiations, once the appraiser comes on board and you've given us a written appraisal on each one of the properties.
Okay, so
They're on.
before I call on the next person, I just want to clarify a few things. It was stated that Article 7, what you're saying, doesn't have anything to do with this particular aspect of the tip. So we just want to make sure that that's a point you were trying to make.
Consultant money in Article 7 is not related to the easement project.
Okay, thank you. Now, the other issue, there seems to be a timing issue with regard to if this doesn't get done, then it has a domino effect, for lack of a better word. Having said that, though, it sounds like there's clearly some individuals that need to have some questions answered. So we'll have to allow a little bit more time for this, folks, because I think it's important, before we vote on this, that whatever issues that still seem to be existing with regard to certain homeowners, that those are addressed before we could vote on that. So, having said that, sir, why don't you come to the microphone?
Blitzky, 9 Hartford Avenue. With all due respect to the DPW director, and it being an urgent need to get done, I'm in a part of there, which my property is a temp.
You can turn that, and then make sure you put it back down for Mrs. Rice.
My property is, the only plan I've seen on it was, I think, 2011, 2012, one came out. I think it was like a 25% design. And at the time on my property, it showed a staging area, and it showed that they were going to make another lane, basically on my front yard, which most of it was already state. I had asked about some of the old property, how they determined from the old deeds what was states, what was people's property. And they had mentioned that it was a 1950s survey or something. But I guess my big question is, I live there, I've been looking on the website, town website, trying to find out information on this TIP program. And I can find tips on fire safety, tips on police safety. I'm not finding too much about TIP plans or anything. So I basically have no idea what's going on. I've probably missed a few meetings, but I have been trying to, I'm obviously very involved in this, in my property.
Sure. So. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Right. There you go.
How's that? Are we okay? All right.
There you go.
Okay. Just one other thing, and then
Yeah.
I'll go back to my seat. The last time we had the plan, the old design, they said to me, we're going to take out that Westboro Road coming down, and where the traffic comes like this, make believe I'm coming off of Westboro
Yeah,
Road.
I know what you mean, right, right.
The people, there's more rear-end accidents there because they're looking up Hartford Ave to see what's coming. They start to go, the car behind is looking up, it hits the car that decided
Yes.
to stop. I see it, I'm there. What they were going to do is they were going to take out that little wheel thing and have the traffic come down now. If you're going to go up Hopkinton Road off of Westboro, you come to a T and you take a left.
That's right.
Well, there should be a traffic light there. Still keep that and go to the right, okay? That, I don't understand who's designing this thing, but they're not designing it the way I see the traffic flow. And if anybody here ever comes, like 5, 6 o'clock at night, off of Westboro Road, Hopkinton traffic will not let you out. You
I know
what
that
it's like.
myself, yes, I know.
All right, so I say, where the consultant is going to look over this design and everything else, and I think the abutters have more input, they live there, they know what's happening, and I don't know why they redesigned it the way they did, but say Levine. But right now, because I know there's an awful lot that needs to be cleared up here. This is not, and I don't know how they arrived at 181,000. How do you know that people are going to accept what you say you're willing to give? And it's going to depend on how it inconveniences them. Some people, like the Aldriches, just put a brand new porch on their house. Okay? So there's a lot of things. And the property values, I'm not going to go on. But
Right.
what I want to do right now is say, and I don't know how to do it properly,
Yeah.
but I would like us to postpone it to a time certain after the consultant has done their work and after the butters have had the meeting. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily February if they want to do it sooner, or have 2 meetings to help us each of the homeowners. And if there's something like 140 people involved that are going to have land taken temporarily or permanently, then I think 181,000, and I'm thinking to myself, this is peanuts. This is peanuts to what they're going to want to give us. And then we're going to have to go get our attorneys. And I don't want to hear that. I want to be able to be comfortably happy that we've been treated fairly and that we now can go forward, let this nightmare happen and get it behind us and so forth and so on.
Okay.
I'm willing to be cooperative.
Fine. So, there are ways to make motions
Okay.
to pass over, to table things, let's say. So if that's what you want
Would
to...
that be a motion?
Well, hang on. If
Yeah.
you want someone else to speak, then we can't, then we have to wait on that motion. Because if you make a motion to table it,
Oh, I
it
see.
requires 2/3 and there can be no discussion on it.
All right.
So if
If anyone-
you want to allow for a little bit more
Oh, there's
discussion,
more people.
because there are more people
there.
who want to speak.
Yeah.
And I know everyone's being patient, I understand that. This is an important issue.
I'll
So-
hold this till they speak.
Fine, I understand.
Can I just clarify,
Yes,
just
please.
clarify one thing?
Yeah.
The intersection that Mary's talking about, we are calling for a traffic light at that intersection there on
Fine.
Westboro Road. I just wanted to state that. The other question you would ask, where did we get the 181,000? That's based on prior projects. TIP projects are very similar to this. So I said there were 2 parts of this. We had permanent easements, and that's based on set value of the property that will be impacted. The temporary easements is based on square footage. They told me to use a figure of $1 to $2 per square foot. And that's based on prior projects from other communities. That's where the number came from. And the other thing I just want to address, very important, we keep talking about the consultant in Article 7. The consultant is not an engineer that's going to review the design plans for this. That's not what this is all about. The consultant that we're proposing in this Article 7 is to bring somebody on board to work with the town and negotiate with each individual homeowner once we've got the appraisals in place, or the appraisal forms in place. That is it. It's got nothing to do with reviewing these plans and making changes to the plans. The plans are, I don't want to say they're 100% done, even though we've submitted the 100% design plan. They're still being reviewed by the state, and so there could theoretically be some changes based on what we hear back from some of the residents. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Good evening. Matt Mead, 49 South Street in Upton. So just a couple of things to clarify really quick, and maybe it's the way I'm reading it, and maybe it's the way it's written. But does Article 6 just allow the money, or does Article 6 give the town council, the Board of Selectmen, the power to implement eminent domain or to take the said property? Is it giving you the power, or is it just giving you the money to back up what power you already have?
Who wants to address that?
Mr. Moderator, there's statutory authority to take easements for highway purposes.
So you already have the power?
This is about an appropriation for the actual payment of damages.
Okay.
Okay, so they already have the power then to answer that question.
So the town has decided that they want to take certain areas of property permanently or temporarily. You already have the power to do that. So this is just going to give you the money to pay for it.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I see
thanks.
a lot of heads bobbing yes, okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Now, one other thing about Article 7.
Well, we're not really talking about Article 7. I've allowed it to happen because there was a question about it, but it's been stated by those that it's not related to 6, so let's just keep that out of it then.
It just doesn't read that way in the explanation submitted by.
That's right.
So,
Well, good, okay, so if
so I mean,
if
let me
it is
read it.
connected, go ahead.
In Article 7, explanation submitted by Board of Selectmen, it's to hire consulting services to assist the town in identifying temporary and permanent easements, and then negotiating the cost of donations for said takings.
Okay.
That to me
Yeah.
sounds like it relates to this $181,000 that we're trying to appropriate for taking whatever properties you've decided to take that you already have the power to take.
Right. I just take it. Go ahead.
So, I just want to clarify that for myself and maybe some members in the audience, that you already have the power. We're not giving you the power, you already have it. And we're just giving you the money to exercise the power that you already have.
Okay.
But I do agree that we should go to the people along that stretch and know more about what's going to happen to their property before we give you the money to do it. Because that's the last thing we have to stop the town, is to not give you the money to do it. If we give you the money and you've already got the power, it's done. You can do whatever you want. That's it.
Mr. Robinson.
The previous speaker said pretty much what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Mr. Matano.
I guess one thing that is important to note is we're well invested into this project. We appropriated money last spring at the annual town meeting of $1.1 million to rebuild the water line or replace the water line. Also $600,000 in engineering and design costs. So we've got a lot to move this project forward. Again, this is keeping the project moving forward. So, I mean, it would be a little late to kind of decide that we don't want to rebuild this road all of a sudden. And some of these easements are not only to widen the road, but also for sidewalks. It's not that, you know, we're taking land or somebody's proposing to take land just to take land. Widening the road, installing sidewalks. We hear things about complete streets. We hear things about unsafe areas to walk. There would be sidewalks there. So again, it's a major improvement to that area. The state is putting up that money. The state's putting up $11 to $12 million, depending on how you want to figure the math. It's a 3-year project. So the town of Upton is in for engineering costs, water line, easements, and whatever other consulting fees, all these other things is our obligation. But no matter how you slice it, it's still a tremendous deal for the town of Upton. Unless, you know, again, there's other towns that will be absolutely tickled pink to get a $12 million project paid for by the state. And I can't promise you it's going to be easy. Can't promise you it's all peaches and cream. You live along the road, and of course, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be 3 years of construction between water line, phase 1, phase 2. But again, this is what we've invested in. So unfortunately, we need to move forward. I just don't see how it would make sense not to, I guess would be my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you. I understand. I want to see it go through. I want to know how it's going to affect me as it goes through. That's reasonable. I'm a citizen, I'm a taxpayer. The bottom line is, oftentimes, things are done in towns where the people are busy with their work life and everything else. They don't pay attention. I have been paying attention to this for years. Other people have too, like the gentleman that got up here and went on. I only want the powers that be in the town that sit up there or wherever it is with the voters to realize that it's not that hard to take 140 people that are going to have their land temporary or permanent taken easements because the state says they have a right to do it, fine. But we should at least have the opportunity to personally have it shown to us, this is how it's going to go, and this on your land, right here on this diagram, one-on-one, is going to be how it's going to affect you, to allow you time to plan. And I don't feel comfortable with that, and yet, I went through that years ago with Jeff Thompson and Larry. They did that with me, and it helped me. But the design has changed since then. It's not the same design at all. And all I'm asking is, I want to make this motion, but I want it not just for myself, I want it for everybody else who's going to be affected, to just have a chance before the February meeting to get going and have us see what it is. Then, when each of us knows how it's going to affect us, land taking as well as monetary, then when you say, this is what you're going to be getting, we'll have a chance to get together, all 140 of us, which maybe you don't want, and band together and say, look what they want to do. Look what they want to give us. Or, they went over it with us, yeah, it's a little harder on you than it is on me, but you know what? Let's just be watchdogs and make sure they do it nicely, they do it right. They respect our being able to get in and out of our property. So it's that kind of thought. And anybody sitting here, if it were going by your home, you would want the same courtesy. So unless this gentleman objects, I'm going to make a motion to postpone to a time certain when we have had that opportunity. Then, when you know for certain what each person, not maybe firmly, but estimated about what it's going to mean to us and what it's going to cost and what you're going to give us, that we have a chance to respond properly. That's all I'm up here for. Thank you. Oh,
Okay.
do I have to stay here?
No, that's fine. Yeah, you can make a motion to postpone to a time certain. That could be done. But I know this is like, I've been doing this for a long time, but this hasn't happened before, so I have to think about it myself.
Okay.
So, town council, what do you think?
Mr. Moderator, the concept of postponing to a time certain is at the same meeting or
Right.
a continued session of the same meeting.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like the speaker is looking to pass over and
Yeah.
definitely postpone discussion.
Yes.
Which doesn't mean that the Board of Selectmen couldn't bring it back. It's just,
Right.
there's no way to postpone it to a different meeting.
I was going to get to that.
Well, how do what
Okay.
do I say?
All right, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can make a motion to table it, which we can. That requires a 2/3 majority vote. Okay. Or we can just vote on it, and it'll either vote up or down. If it votes down, that means it dies for now. But in theory, and I'm only saying this because I'm just looking at it from a perspective of a town meeting point of view. At some point in the future, another town meeting can be called to deal with this, if that can happen. I'm not saying it should happen, I'm just saying, in theory, that could happen.
So I
Okay.
should make it a motion
But-
to table it.
Well, but that requires a two-thirds vote. So if you think two-thirds of the people are gonna be in favor of that, then you could do that. Or, what I was gonna say is this, it requires a two-thirds
Okay.
majority vote to pass this.
All right, but a regular vote is 50-50?
No, two-thirds. It requires two-thirds to pass this, which means if you let it vote the way it is, you only need 34% of the people to say no, and it dies.
Mr. Moderator?
Okay?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
I just want to clarify something, because I spoke a little prematurely. The town has the right to take drainage easements without approval from town meeting, but for highway purposes, we would need approval from town meeting. I just don't want there to be a
Fine,
misconception
thank
on
you,
that.
yeah. So, if you just let it go to a vote, if 34% of the people say, no, they don't want to do this, it dies, okay? If you want to try to table it, then you need to get two-thirds of the people to vote for it.
Or 1/3 against it?
No, you need to have two-thirds to vote with you to table it, but if we allow the thing to
Right,
vote.
but
as it
2/3
has
and
to be-
1/3. So what you're saying is 1/3, if I table it, are against tabling it. Or if we just go to a vote, it's 33%.
That's all you
Which
need.
is 1/3. It's
All
the
you-
same.
No, it's actually the opposite.
Mr. Moderator, Mr. Moderator.
If you don't want this to go through, your best thing to do is allow the town to vote it down. And that's not a majority vote. This requires a two-thirds majority vote to pass. Is that correct, town council?
Mr. Moderator, that is correct, 2/3.
Okay. Hang on. There's some disagreement with the two people to my right here with regard to whether it's majority or not. You're saying because of a money situation. But it's not because of a money situation. My understanding is it's because of another situation. Folks, I know this is taking a while, but we've got to make sure we get this right, okay?
The game show, I'm going to call on the audience.
So, you all set?
I just want to ask the Board of Selectmen, would they be willing to do the hearing before we have to vote on this money? The abutters meeting to go over this with us.
The risk we're running right now by not making this.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No, it works, it just has to get closer.
The risk we're running, like I had mentioned earlier, that timeline which is gone, Mass DOT has to issue their right-of-way certificate by September 30th. And in order for them to do that, we have to record all the deeds by September. And in order to do that, we have to have an agreement, compensation offers by August. So we need the appropriation so we can start negotiating. The surveyor is going to start doing his work or her work this spring, and we can start negotiating come April with the abutters. So again, if we don't make if we wait until May for this appropriation, the risk we run is that we won't meet the state's deadline of September 30th. Therefore, if we don't meet that deadline, phase 1 may get pushed off.
What is the reason that you know you're going to, if I were taking your land, I think you would like the courtesy of knowing everything about what's going to happen before you set up all these deadlines for yourself. You know, I'm going to say it, and I was holding back on saying it.
Well, be careful what you say.
No, I am going to say it. Yes, I'm going to say it as gently as I can.
Fair enough.
And I'm not insulting anybody. Believe me, I applaud mostly how it was done. I applaud the people that put in the hard work. Here it comes. But it's like the Kiwanis Beach project. before a tree was cut down, the people on Sutton Lane bent over backwards to try and make sure that it was done properly. And due to a few irresponsible decision-making things, is now a mess. That is not due to Sutton Lane people. That is due to the people that rushed ahead to do a certain thing. Yes, it's nice, it's lovely, but it didn't fit all the criteria of laws and regulations of the federal and the state. And that's what the mess on that is. Now, you're going to be doing something that affects property owners. We're taxpayers. I'm not going to repeat my plea and my request, but I'm just going to say, I don't know the proper protocol to ask, but certainly by now you know what my heart wants.
Right.
I want a courtesy of a chance before the vote on this amount of money, because once you vote that money, that's what the money is. And you don't know how each person is going to respond. But if you come to me and say, we're going to give you $240, and we're going to block your access and do all this, and put permanent staging there, and all that. So I just want to say, I'm not alone on this, it's all 139 other property owners. We deserve the courtesy of a meeting with us, where you have it stretched out and planned, and say, here's yours, here's what we're going to be taking. And I might say, oh, fine. Or I might say, you just got to give me notice if you're going to be blocking my property. And no, you can't park that there, but yes, you can park that there. And I realize the state overrides just and every right, but still.
Okay, thank you. I know somebody-
How do I make mine?
Mr. Moderator,
Okay,
a question was asked to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen are in a duly posted meeting. I consulted my colleagues. They are in agreement to defer this. Understand that this schedule was driven by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not the town of Upton. So we have no idea what impact this will have on the project. But to the courtesy of the citizens, the Board of Selectmen, am I correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
Will defer this project.
Thank you. I would like people to applaud for our Thank you. Now, I don't need to do any more.
well, no, you don't.
Mr. Moderator,
I will figure out
to pass over this article.
what you're allowed to do at this point is to, hang on a second. We've had a lot of discussion, so we can't simply withdraw it. The best thing I think that we can do with this is to lay it on the table. If we lay it on the table, it means that we basically kill it without killing it too badly. It requires a two-thirds vote.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we lay this motion on the table.
Is there a second? There's a second, okay, and it's not debatable. What it means is that we want to put the rest for now. Board of Selectmen will do some stuff, and we'll come back to the town later. That's what that means. It requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of laying on the table signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Oh, boy, that does not pass by a two-thirds vote, okay? So,
Mr. Moderator, I call the question.
okay. Need a second, okay. We're going to move the question, all right? You've all learned a lot of things tonight about parliamentary procedure, whether you like it or not, okay? All right, so calling the question means that you've heard enough, and I think you have. So if you vote to call the question, it just means you want to then vote on it afterwards. So, all those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, that passes by two-thirds. Now we're going to vote on the question. Voting on it means just like we vote on any other motion. This does require a two-thirds majority vote. So, if you're in favor of this to move forward, as the motion says, you want to vote yes for this. If you are not in favor of having this move forward, then you would vote no on this. You understand? Okay. So, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The motion carries by a two-thirds majority vote. It passes. I'm sorry, I can second, yeah.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $25,000 to hire a consultant, including all expenses incidental and related to managing the transportation improvement project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No. Motion carries unanimously. Article 8. Mr. Robinson.
John Robertson, Library Trustees, I move the town vote to transfer from the library wages line item the sum of $4,000 dollars to the maintenance line item to be used for repair and preventive maintenance of the Northland Steam Building.
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation. Favorable action.
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, and need to carry. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 9.
Rita Richard, 125 Westboro Road, the Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I move that the town vote to transfer from the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 2018 estimated annual revenues, the sum set forth below, to the following Community Preservation Fund accounts to meet the requirements of Mass General Law 44B. It's a Historic Resources account, $41,083.67. The same for open space and for community housing. And to place any remaining fiscal year 2018 estimated annual revenues in a so-called fiscal year 2018 undesignated budgeted reserve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation.
Favorable action.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 10.
Article 10, I move that the town will vote to transfer the total sum of $292,175 from the Community Preservation Fund to meet the 5th year payment of debt service owed on the general obligation town hall renovation bonds with $41,083.67 from the Historic Resources account and $251,091.33 from the undesignated account.
Moved and seconded. FinCom.
Favorable action.
CPC.
Favorable action.
Any discussion?
Just a question, how much money is in the Community Preservation Fund?
Item count.
As of June 30th, the CPA fund had $644,220.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 11.
I move that the town votes to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, and amend the general bylaws as printed on the warrant.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, and this creates a commission on disability, as is stated on the warrant. Any discussion on that?
Shelley Cook again. I just have a question on this. Is this going to prevent, now we've had 2 issues with our town not following ADA compliances, having 2 projects, significant projects, I think Memorial and now Kiwanis, would this commission decrease the chance of a third?
Okay, that's a hypothetical question, but
It's a good question. So the Commission on Disabilities, we actually met most recently, and one of my recommendations to them was taking a page out of the municipalities where any projects, public works projects, they go before in the various design stages, so 25%, 50% design, they go before the Commission on Disabilities, so the Commission on Disabilities can weigh in on that. The Commission on Disabilities can work with the Architectural Access Board to ensure that all of our projects moving forward are ADA and AAB compliant. It's a measure, but we can't guarantee that it will happen. Certainly, we're going to work hard towards that, though.
Okay.
Okay, so this is like another fail-safe that we should not get to that spot where we're repairing what we've incorrectly done.
Absolutely. It's another control that we're trying to implement.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Title II, Chapter 1 of the general bylaws, town meetings, by inserting the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language as written in the 2017 special town meeting warrant.
Okay. Second? Is there any discussion? I would like someone to explain what this does, essentially.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. For years, there have been citizens and members of town boards and committees that have asked that the town meeting and the election be changed so that the town meeting precedes the election, so that the senior member of the Board of Selectmen is able to participate. Obviously, having 3 years sitting in the chair, their information and their insights could be valuable at the town meeting. So it is felt, as other towns do, that the town meeting is held, then the election follows.
Okay, great. That's really what all this does. So, any further discussion? Mr. Robinson?
I guess my feeling is that the devil is in the details. And while I neither oppose it or approve it at the present time, I'm open to either way. I was wondering how much work they've done on the actual detail of implementing this. One of my concerns, just to give an example, is it's very important for us to have the town reports, and this is particularly the FinCom report, but also the other reports, because Article 2 and Article 3, unless you're going to change it, require a vote at the business section. So how are we going to distribute those documents to the registered voters in the town of Upton? They're usually distributed at the election. That will be too late.
Yes.
That's a good question.
It is a good question, and it was, for many years I've opposed this, to be very candid, but now I've acquiesced. Now with the electronic media and all the means we have to provide information on the website and through other means, yes, the election will still have to book the town annual report, which really doesn't impact the town meeting. The town meeting warrant for the annual town meeting, as you know, whether the election follows or precedes is really irrelevant because it really starts in February, January, February, that process, as does the Finance Committee's process. So you will have all the activities done. The difference will be at the election you will receive follow-up because the town meeting will have already taken place of the Finance Committee report and the annual report. But the Finance Committee report, now let them speak for themselves, but it will be available prior to the annual town meeting as is required.
So,
but how is that going to be distributed? That's my
As
point.
I stated, Mr. Moderator, it will be available at the town hall, be disseminated on the town website, and that's the best we can do.
Well,
I do question that that's sufficient.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robinson. I guess the only comment that I would like to make is this, that a number of typewritten copies of the warrant still be available in the selectman's office or in the town clerk's office, so that that way, and that the FinCom, you still do a great job of getting the information out long before the meeting. Because just as a commentary, one of the reasons why we can so quickly go through the budget is because I know that the townspeople have a copy of that long before the town meeting. If it's not available, then we'll have to go back to the line by line, which I'm not gonna do. So, the FinCom, just as long as you keep getting your budget in like you do now, that would be great. So, Mr. Flaherty.
Mr. Moderator, I believe we also could perhaps work with the publisher of the town crier to put it in there, and then one would be distributed to everybody, as I see Mr. Holden closing his eyes.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? So essentially, it just flip-flops that we now will have the town meeting before the election. Oh, and the election is also on a Tuesday, not on a Monday, which is when we typically have it during that. Everyone else set with that? So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries no, not unanimously, by majority. By majority. Article 13.
Article 13. I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept gifts of land for such purposes and upon such terms and conditions as it deems appropriate, including but not limited to a property to be donated by Mr. Desjardins on Brook Street and by Mr. Porter on Shore Drive. And further, to memorialize such authority to amend the town bylaws by inserting a new section, Title II, Chapter 2, Section 12, for such purposes as written in the 2017 Special Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Move the second, Kevin. Okay. I'm just looking at the extra language in here with regard to it fitting within the four corners of the article, and that's fine. Oh, okay. Okay, so after the word to memorialize such, where is that? The word general goes right there, such general authority. Okay, in addition to other wording that was added in here, including but not limited to a property to be donated by Mr. Desjardins on Brook Street, by Mr. Porter on Shore Drive, correct?
Yes.
As well. Okay? Is it been a second?
Second.
Second. No FinCom? Yes, sir.
I have two questions. Our voting on this tonight, does that have the effect of the town accepting those donations? Or is there a separate action required by the board?
Yes, so this would give the authority of the board to accept those two particular parcels, and moving forward, it would also give the board the authority to accept parcels of land on behalf of the town.
Right, you said it gives you the authority. But my question is, a yes vote tonight actually is an acceptance of these two properties?
No.
Well,
Or is it a separate action?
Separate action.
Right, and we would have to have a meeting to actually vote as to whether or not to accept those two particular parcels.
Okay, the second question is, how would the citizens be notified that such an item comes before the board?
Mr. Moderator?
Yeah.
Through you. All actions of the board relative to acceptance of such a gift of land would happen at a posted meeting for which the agenda item would particularly list the address, lot number, plan number, all the specifications.
So it would be not a posted town meeting, but a posted selectmen's meeting.
Posted meeting of the Board of
Board
Selectmen.
of Selectmen, okay, just to clarify that. Okay? Yes, sir?
I just have one question, quick one. Is this Title II, Chapter 2, Section 12, is this another way of giving you a way of going in and in taking people's property under easement or any other means, any other interest, without a vote?
Town clerk, excuse me, town council.
The answer is no.
No, okay.
Well,
This is if a citizen wants to give property to the community,
This is
correct?
only if it is a donation of land that requires no appropriation.
Of money.
easements or any other
Okay,
interest?
sir? Okay.
What is that, any other interest?
Mr. Moderator.
Yeah,
It would be an easement or a conservation restriction or any other interest in land. And again, it would only be if the individual was donating that land to the town.
that's the key, that the person is donating the property. Yes, sir.
Dave Gruber, 21 South Street. My question is, once land is donated, the use of that land, how is the rest of the town able to have an opinion on the use of donated land? And I bring that up in the case of if my neighbor donated a large parcel of land to the town decided to use that land for whatever, for a public works garage or some other facility, it may affect the use of, it may affect me as a, so how is that governed once the donation of the land happens?
Yes, thank you. Good question, and I'm glad the laughter has subsided. Council?
Mr. Moderator, through you. The issue of the purpose for which land is donated, if it was for general municipal purposes, then that purpose would allow the use of the land for any of the purposes that a municipality may use land. However, per your example, if it was going to be a DPW garage, that would require an appropriation to build a DPW garage. So town meeting still has a significant amount of control. This is really for situations that actually occur quite commonly when someone wants to donate land for conservation purposes. The board has to wait for a significant amount of time to a town meeting or call a special town meeting. So this just provides flexibility. It's not a mandate. The board doesn't have to accept a gift of land that's been proposed for a particular purpose. It can still bring it to town meeting if it chooses. In addition, as indicated, because the board would take action on something like this at an open meeting, if someone had concerns, they'd be able to voice those concerns to the board.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion derived from Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carries by a majority. Article 14.
I move that the town vote to transfer $25,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund balance to make the Kiwanis Recreation Area more functional for its intended use, in particular to make the walkway leading to the upper parking lot adjacent to the soccer field compliant with the American with Disabilities Act and the regulations of the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board.
Your second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation? CBC recommendation?
Favorable action.
Okay, that's the capital budget committee. So, discussion. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 15.
Joan Burrow, 27th Street, also on the shore.
Get a little bit closer, please.
I tried to put it in.
There you go.
I move that the town vote to transfer $10,000 from the Community Preservation Open Space account for the preservation and rehabilitation of the historic schoolhouse number 6 and site thereof located on North Street, including but not limited to the prevention of further damage to a stone foundation and retaining walls by removing trees and snags.
Been moved and seconded. Can I have the card, please? FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation? Okay. I just, I just have a technical question. It's going to sound like a weird question, but as I read this literally, it makes it look as if Schoolhouse 6 is still there, but that is not the case, correct? It is just a site that it used to be on. Okay? Because it says rehabilitation of historic schoolhouse number 6 and site. So there is not a schoolhouse there, right? Good. Any questions?
I'm just curious. Is a foundation there, and where is it?
Okay. Is there a foundation, or where is it?
The foundation is right beside the road on North Street, just before you get to the pumping station. You can see it from your car.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries by a majority. Okay, Article 16.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to the town clerk's wage line item of FY 2018 operating budget for the purpose of reconstructing the roles and responsibility of the town clerk.
Second? Second. Move to second, if FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action.
Okay, any discussion?
Yep.
Dr. Taylor?
I'd like to just know why we're appropriating $15,000 and what the $15,000 will buy us.
Okay. Anyone want to answer that question?
Yeah, I can answer that. Like good government, we always look inward and try to find efficiencies and areas where we can improve upon. And since my time here, and even with my predecessor, as you all know, the town clerk has done tremendous work for the town the last 15 years and has capacity to do even more for the town. So I've been working directly with the assistant town manager and our consultant, Human Resources Incorporated, to look at how we could expand those roles, and in particular in the role of information technology and facility management. I've asked the town clerk to take those additional roles on. On top of that, I've asked her to add an additional 250 hours to her annual workload, so that's an additional 5 hours per week. Previously, the town clerk was working 35 hours per week, moving to 40 hours per week. In a way to offset the cost of what I'm asking for tonight, we've eliminated one of our contracts that handled all of our facilities management. That's a tune of about $6,000 annually. So the annual future cost will be approximately $9,000, although we are requesting $15,000 this evening.
Okay. Any further discussion? Dr. Taylor?
As I understand it, this work was done before by the secretary to the selectman's office, and what it had to do with was maintenance of the town hall and picking up the phone and doing other chores. I think $15,000, transfer that to the town clerk's salary is not keeping with the amount of work to pick up a phone when the toilet doesn't flow or the door doesn't fix.
Shelley Cook. I just have a question. At the last town meeting, we brought up the question of reevaluating positions such as the administrative assistant to the town manager when a permanent town manager was actually hired. As that has been done, I was wondering about the reevaluation as the town clerk's position has also now been reevaluated.
Just to get clarification, you're asking about the town clerk's position or the assistant's position?
The assistant, because before we only had a temporary town manager, and the assistant to the town manager was filling in for the temporary position, and it was brought up that maybe we'd possibly reevaluate when there was a full-time town manager hired.
So they're sort of tied together. If there's been modifications to this position, then would there be modifications to the other? Is that how the question relates? Okay.
So the assistant position has been expanded, as you all know. I actually attended the May town meeting, and I sat in and listened to that debate. That position has been expanded to take on many of the town's human resources functions, and that continues to exist and will continue to exist. What we're talking about tonight is the expansion of the role of the town clerk.
Okay, and you've answered that question with regard to what you stated a
That's
couple
correct.
minutes ago. Okay, good. So, that's essentially how it's working.
And then my next, this is now the second town position that has a 20% increase overall in pay. I'm just wondering if we have any more coming down the pipe that would have significant increases in pay as well.
Okay? Mr. Majors?
So I want to tee up, because I've heard that a lot, about a 20% pay increase. I see that differently, so I want to tee up a few slides for folks so they can understand what we're trying to accomplish. One
Think
minute.
up.
Yeah, he knows, he's working.
Make a motion for a new microphone.
Can't get it much closer.
I tell you, I would second that one, thank you, yeah.
So again, one back slide, one please. So again, when we think about the expansion of the roles, and your question was, are future positions going to be expanded? Well, we don't know. I mean, I think good government is always looking for efficiencies and trying to identify people within the organization that can fill those roles. I can clearly state in my short time being here, this town has zero bench. What I mean by bench is no depth. We have, if there are a couple people within the organization that were to leave, this town would struggle because they're the only individuals that do that work. So what we're trying to accomplish is a little bit of cross-training so multiple people understand. So if there's someone leaves, whether they're sick or they're on vacation or they leave or in retirement, we still have depth within the organization. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So I listed some of the expanded roles with what we're talking about here tonight. And you can see some of the things that are happening today that may not have been more prevalent 10 years ago. We're looking about e-permitting. We're thinking about our work we do with World Band, who does a lot of our IT support, online permitting and payments are also considerations, so we can make things more user-friendly for the residents here in town. And then facilities management. I've talked to many people in this seat prior to myself who often told me stories of they're trying to work on the annual budget and they get a phone call at the library because there's a leak. They have to leave the seat and they have to focus on that leak or something going on within that facility. This allows the town clerk to focus on those issues so that somebody in my seat can focus on other issues like economic development, for example. And you can see just quickly of some of the issues that we're already dealing with. The senior center is looking at a minor renovation. The town hall roof, as you all know, is leaking this previous fall, and the town clerk had to manage that operation so we can get prepared for this winter. We have other major facility improvements that may come up down the road that need to be managed, like the library and a potential new DPW facility. Next slide. So then, and so all this requires a body to be there for additional amount of time. This is the current rate, 34.31. I'm trying to look from over here. 34.31. Next slide. And at 35 hours a week, it's approximately $62,000 a year. At 40 hours a week, at that same rate, they move up to about $71,000 a year. The rate based upon the additional roles, the expanded responsibilities, I am recommending, with the consultant's recommendation, HRS, of a new rate of $37. And if you prorate that over the 40-hour work week, that's $77,000. So it's not a 20% increase, it's actually an 8.5% increase if you look at a 40-hour work week.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
Elizabeth Warner, 31 Fisk Avenue. Can you go back to the first slide, please? So it says town clerk, assistant to the town manager. So the town clerk is one position, assistant to the town manager is a different one, correct?
Yes, of the expanded roles I previously.
Right, and so what's up here is what the town clerk's expanded duties would be. Correct?
As the assistant.
Correct. Oh, so she's gonna be the town clerk, assistant to the town manager?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I was wondering if that's what the question was, because I was wondering that myself. So,
That's the new
This is the
title.
same person.
That's the recommended job
That's
title by the
okay,
consultant.
okay, so that's the same person. so it's clear now that she's, you know, going to 40 hours a week and taking care of extra duties. So when we voted on a $15,000 increase for the, I don't know what the appropriate title is, the Assistant to the Board of Selectmen, was, what are the hours? You know, was there a similar increase in hours as we're showing the town clerk is?
Are you referring to Sandy's position?
Yes.
Sandy works 40 hours a week.
Okay, so there was you could put up a similar list of increased responsibilities and increased
I mean, that
hours.
predates me, but I certainly would be more than happy to do the analysis.
Yeah, but that's not what we're voting.
I understand that. I understand that. And this is, you know, no problem. But I just wanted to understand. So that is a 40-hour week job.
That is a
There
40-hour
was
week
just
job.
a question about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Marshall?
Mike Marchand, 21 Warren Street. I want to be loud and clear, we are not creating an assistant town manager's position.
That's a
Is that a question or a statement?
No,
Is
we are
that a
not.
question?
Well, I don't know. Is that a question or is that a
Well,
statement?
it says assistant to the town manager, it sounds like an assistant town manager's position.
No, that's the title. It's not
Okay.
assistant town manager.
So we're not creating, in the little town of Upton, an assistant town manager?
Correct.
Okay. The second part of the question was, it says, here it says senior center, town hall. We have a police station, we have a fire station. It says in the article, we manage all town buildings. So that person for the $15,000 is gonna have a lot to do. So they're gonna be managing those departments, so the police chief, the fire chief doesn't have to worry about if the roof's leaking, or the plumber, or it says all town buildings.
Mr. Plummer?
If I may, Mr. Moderator, that is correct. The individual to whom we're speaking oversaw the reconstruction and renovation of the town hall. So that individual has a great deal of experience in dealing with not only architects, but construction firms, bid process, and so on. So it would be the intent that it would be for all town-owned properties, yes.
Can I just make a comment, though, given the statement you made? If the fire station roof is leaking, someone's going to have to let her know about it. It's not like she's going to be there to see that. So we don't want to go that far.
Mr. Moderator, it's
Yes.
also our understanding that there would be and I don't know the construction term, but there would be a graphing that would show that there's a constant monitoring to the conditions of the buildings.
Sure.
We wouldn't wait till the bell goes off to say we've got a problem.
Mr. Marshall?
What we had before is we hired a company that came in there, and as far as I'm concerned, took us for a ride in doing what now the town clerk is going to be able to manage. We paid, in some cases, I know at the fire station, more money for a floor than we've gone through our own bid. But I just want to be loud and clear that it says in the article, all town buildings, and up there it just says, senior center and that.
It's all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
That town hall renovation, did that include a roof?
Yes, I'm glad somebody brought that up. Thank you for the segue. That did not cost the taxpayers anything. That was a result of the construction process, and that was done by the contractors as their obligation to repair what was a deficiency. So that was part of the original project.
So how much was the person paid to overlook that?
Actually, the person that we're talking about tonight overlooked most of that at the present salary.
No, not over, well, okay. Overlooked or oversaw? I mean, I think it was she oversaw that.
Yes.
It was not overlooked by that individual.
Oversaw.
Right. I just want to make sure we're clear about that, so thank you. All right, any other discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Motion carried by a majority. Article 17.
Mike Penko, 1 Grafton Road. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $5,000 for a supplemental appropriation to the conservation fund.
Second, moved and seconded, FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action.
Favorable action. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 18. Mr. Battaglia.
Article 18, that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of the property shown in the warrant under Article 18 from the town treasurer for tax title purposes, including for sale at auction, to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes and for the purposes of sale, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell such land or interest therein, provided further that said property shall be subject to an easement for public access to pass and repass from Westboro Road to the Upton State Forest, identified as 0 Westboro Road and being Assessor's Map 2, Parcel 56, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute any and all instruments as may be necessary to effectuate the vote taken hereon.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
As the treasurer, I'm also the custodian of tax title properties, and this property was in tax title, and I had the opportunity to have it auctioned off in 2 weeks, but it was pulled basically because of what the selectmen was suggesting. And I just want, before you vote, I want to give you some facts about this piece of property. This, it's a 13.648 acre property that's assessed at $250,600. It has a 726-foot frontage, and it was taken in tax title in 1975. So, under normal circumstances, as the custodian of tax title properties, I have the ability to put it up in auction. Something that I would do, believe me, right away would be in 2 weeks, but the best we could do is next year. So what in effect you're doing right now is you're taking that ability from me to put on auction and getting $250,000 or $300,000 and putting it again into the general fund, and you're taking it off the table. So just be aware of that. This is a potential amount of money that could go to the general fund. And there's no specific purpose that's being stated on why the selectmen want to keep this other than to keep it. So I don't want to put words in their mouth, but the town of Upton right now has 88 piece parcels of property, some which the town hall is up on in the DPW, but we still have an awful lot of miscellaneous properties all the way around. And I don't know why this would be taken off that list of auctionable items.
Mr. Moore?
Yes. Before you, I just want to, where is, I want to know where this property is.
It's on Westboro Road, it's near the Westboro town line. And the
Okay.
reason we elected as a board to not go to auction, if anyone has served on a town committee, primarily I would use the library, they searched for 3 years and couldn't find any town-owned land that was suitable for any construction of any kind of building. Another need we have is a cemetery. We're outgrowing our cemetery. At some point, there will be no cemetery space available. When the town owns land that's got 13.5 acres that can be built on, can be used, and has frontage like that, we're foolish to let it go because we can't buy land back. It comes up very seldom that somebody will sell that kind of land because, as you all know, land is at a valuable premium. So we elected to protect it by keeping that land.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Bullock.
This property, by the way, is on Westboro Road. It's going out towards Hawkinton. It's on the left side. It's just before the Mass Turnpike. If you think you're going to put a cemetery there, first of all, I just can't imagine that. If you're going to put a cemetery, let's have it down at the center of town. Sell this thing, take the money, and then buy a piece of property that's closer to the center of town. There's even some argument that the cemetery is going to run out of space. There's been a quoted that the cemetery will run out of space in 5 years. That's not necessarily true. I spoke to the cemetery commission. So as far as I'm concerned, this is pie in the sky for a cemetery. Just to say, let's have the land and just have it for the sake of having it with no real purpose in mind. It serves no purpose whatsoever. Selling this makes it taxable. They'll be paying, someone will be paying taxes on it, and that all goes back to the general fund.
I'll defer to the next speaker.
Sometimes things happen at 1,055 London Street. Sometimes things aren't as simple as they appear. The issue with the cemetery is that we think that would be a pretty good piece of property for cemetery use. It has one disadvantage, there's a minor waterway, runs occasionally when it rains out, but no other time. That's central in the property, otherwise it's ideal. The real issue is, the town also has 2 acres up on the end of Hartford Avenue South, with another 10 acres adjacent to it, actually in the town of Northbridge. We have looked at that as cemetery property for many years, and unfortunately the state land between Hartford Ave South and the access to the town land. I'm told by prior commissioners at the Cemetery Commission that they have approached the state many times for access rights to use a right-of-way across 50 or 100 feet of state land to get to the backland that the town owns for cemetery use. The state pretty much has said, we ain't gonna do that. So my request here is, with this property, there's state land behind it. Included in this article is a provision to provide access to the state land. I would ask them for a modification to remove that access right, make this town land purely town land, and if and when the state decides they would like access to it, we'll negotiate with them for the access to the property on High Street, at Avenue South. Thank you.
So are you making an amendment to this or not?
I'm asking for an amendment, yes.
Well, okay, if you want to make an amendment, it has to be in writing, very specific. So while you're doing that, this is it, right? 56, Westboro Road here, that's into Westboro. That's where it is, folks. Sure, please.
May I speak? You know, this is one of those opportunities. Look, you don't want it, you don't want it. I live on the other side of Upton. But land is valuable, and when you can control land, the key word is control, the town then has the determination for it. That's all I'm saying. We talk about needs for recreation, we talk about other needs. We own it, we decide. It sounds great. You get $250,000, you put that in your pocket and you say, oh great, we get tax on it. That doesn't go very far. That's a one-time shot. And believe me, this wasn't a generic decision. This was done with meditation and thought. So if you want to give it up, you give it up, but it isn't coming back.
So, there's a motion to make an amendment to Article 18 to what? To what?
To eliminate
Yeah,
the access rights to the backland,
to eliminate access rights to the back
state
land,
land behind.
the state land. Well, I'm looking at the motion here, and I need to be able to put this into a motion somewhere. So, thank you.
All the way to Parsons. This provides
I think you just go up to forest. You want to keep that. Right? You want to go what did you say? Further forest. All right, so there's an amendment that's being made to remove the wording, provided further that said property shall be subject to an easement for public access to pass and repass from Westboro Road to the Upton State Forest. Basically, you want to remove the easement. That's what the amendment is about. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay. So what we're gonna do now is just talk about the amendment. We're not gonna talk about the motion as a whole, just the amendment. Do you think it's a good idea to remove the language about allowing an easement? That's what the discussion is on right now. Okay? Any discussion on that? Yes, Mr. Marshall.
Simple question, why was the easement, why are we putting it in there?
Right, why is there an easement, why is the language in there in the first place, let's say?
If I'm not mistaken, the next speaker can address that.
Okay?
Bill Taylor, 211 North Street. I'm a member, I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee, and we propose that the article be amended to include that easement to preserve access to the state forest land, which is that rather odd-shaped parcel. Right, there's about 44 acres of state forest land, which would be completely surrounded by private land if the town of Upton sold that parcel. I think it's important to preserve access to that land for the residents of Upton and also for people in general. I suspect that the DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, would be interested in perhaps buying all or some of that parcel to maintain that access. And that's one option in terms of doing something like that. The other thing is, with the high school, we traded land with DCR in order to make room for the high school. It may be entirely possible that we could trade that parcel for the access that the cemetery commissioner was interested in. But what I hate to have happen is to lose access to the state forest land. So that's why we proposed it.
So the easement is there to get access to the state forest?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Mr. Marshall?
So, town of Upton's got a lot of open space land, and a lot of it was screwed up access. We're not buying this for open space, we're buying this to be able to have the choice to be able to do what we want with it. correct?
Just to talk about the easement issue. We're just talking about the amendment.
Well, all right, I'm just trying to figure out the intent of the easement. Is the intent of the easement to make it into open space property?
Okay, fair question.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to clarify, the town isn't looking to buy this property, the town owns this property in tax title. What is being proposed is to transfer it from tax title purposes to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes, and it also says, and for the purpose of sale. So it essentially allows the greatest amount of discretion as to how to use this property in the future.
Okay. Thank you, yes.
Looking at the map, I can see the lot.
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marcia Keselowski, 10 Whitney Lane. Looking at the map, I can see the lot you're talking about, but I can't figure out where it is on Westboro Road.
Oh,
If
okay.
you could give us some general,
Yeah, it's really close to the town of Westboro, and you're way up.
Westboro.
Yeah, right about, right. Okay, so it's very close.
what's the cost there? If you just can't read it.
This is Lackey Road here, it's like a dirt road. No, it's not Lackey Road, okay. Is this, is this Ridge Road here? Okay, do you know what Ridge Road is? Okay, that's it, just above Ridge Road.
Last comment would be that we can add an easement for future access to the back anytime. What we're trying to do is to establish a negotiating leverage between the town and the state. The state has pretty much said, we have no leverage to get access to land up on Hartford Avenue South that we own, but we can't get to for 50 feet of state land. If the state gives us access to that land up there, we can always have an easement there. Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. However, I would say that there's certainly a situation where something could happen and we weren't negotiating with the state. We were trying to do something else with the land, use it for a cemetery, use it for a DPW facility, and we would still want to maintain access to the state forest land, to the west of it. And we're not trying to convert this particular
parcel into open space. That's typically what I would try to do. But all we're asking here is that there be like a 30 to 50 foot corridor somewhere on the property that would permit access from Westboro Road to that parcel.
Okay, fine. So, this is a lot of discussion on just an amendment, but still we're talking about the amendment. Mr. Kowalski, anything on the amendment?
So, to the prior speaker, if that property stays in tax title right now, before it would be auctioned off, that easement to get into the state property can easily be negotiated before the property sold. So there's nothing that's being accomplished by giving this authority to the selectmen that the custodian of tax title couldn't do.
Okay. So, we're done talking about the amendment, okay? So basically, right now, you're voting on whether or not you want to remove the language that allows for an easement to go from Westboro Road to the state property. If you vote yes, it means you want to remove the easement. If you vote no, it means you want to keep the language of the easement in there. Okay? So, all those in favor of removing the language for the easement, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The motion is lost. The amendment is lost. Okay, so we're back to the motion without any amendment to it. Dr. Taylor.
All right, I would like to just say that, to me, living in this town for 30 years, $300,000 or $250,000, if it was auctioned off, is a lot of money. And I would like to support the tax collector's statement that auctioning off this land and getting $250,000 or $300,000 and then putting it on the tax rolls is a wise fiscal move. We just can't see throwing money down the door. $250,000 is a lot to me. I don't know what it means to the selectmen, but one of the selectmen said, well, if you want to throw away $250,000, take the land away. I'm in favor of auctioning this land off.
Fine. Any other discussion? Okay, so let's make it very clear. The motion from Article 18 would say that this piece of property would go to the custodial care of the Board of Selectmen. If you vote yes, the Board of Selectmen to have the care for it right now. If you vote no, that means you don't want that to happen, and its potential in the future is that it may be sold at auction, which is basically what the no vote would possibly do in the future. Is that clear? Anybody? Okay. So, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Okay. This does require a 2/3 majority vote, and by the voice, I cannot make the call on a 2/3 majority vote on this. So what it means is that we're going to have a standing vote, okay? So, those of you who in the past have helped me with counting, if you could come forward, I would appreciate that.
She's on her way. Okay, so what this standing count does is verify what your voice votes are.
So if you voted yes for this by the voice, then at this point, you need to stand up. Everybody who voted yes, stand up.
Can't vote? Okay, yep, yep.
Everybody sit down. Those of you who voted no, please stand up. Everybody sit down, please. So, Yes was 96, no was 35. It does pass by a 2/3 majority vote. So, we now move to Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we pass over Article 19.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we pass over Article 19. Thank you. FinCom,
Fine, Mr. Moderator.
fine with the FinCom, okay? All those in favor of passing over Article 19, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And if you're not sure, that just means we don't want to take it up tonight. So, that's with that. Thank you. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $152,000 and transfer the sum of $35,000 from Article 24 of the 2017 annual town meeting for the purpose of 3 Milford Street for general municipal purposes, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute instruments and take other actions as may be necessary to carry out the vote taken hereunder.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the town, let's see, 152 from free cash and 35,000 from Article 24 of the 2017 town meeting. 3 Milford Street, that's the old Catholic church. And you'll notice if you add those two numbers up, it's less than what was in the original article, which is certainly fine to do that. FinCom, did I ask you for recommendation?
No, Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Yes, please.
Jonathan Caliano, South Street, on behalf of the Finance Committee. Just a brief background to this property. We had a meeting earlier in the fall at the Finance Committee, and there was really not a lot of support to purchase this at the $235,000 level. So I made a suggestion to my fellow members that we go back and negotiate with the Maloneys and see if we can get to a price that makes more sense for the town. And they allowed me to do that, and we met with the Maloneys, myself, Mr. and Mrs. Maloney, town clerk, and also the new town manager. And through those negotiations, we came forward at a price of $187,000. And we told the Maloneys that we'd only bring this to town floor tonight if we had unanimous support of the Finance Committee, the Capital Budget Committee, and the Board of Selectmen. And we have that. And so that's why we're going forward with this today. We believe that this is a very prudent move for the town to purchase this piece of property because it's the key to the whole downtown area. We've already made a $7 million investment in the downtown area. We're committed, there's no question. To control this parcel, which is the gateway to the area, is a very key piece of this puzzle. Now, we can have a lot of discussions about what are we going to do with this thing. All those discussions don't mean anything if we don't buy this property. So once we own it, we can do a lot of things. We can have a lot of discussions. We can talk about libraries. We can talk about redevelopment. We can talk about business zoning. We can talk about a lot of things. We don't own it. We're wasting our time talking. It's all about control, and this is important to control this key piece of property. We already own the property next to it, which is the parking area. We own a parking area that's a little further down the road. We already have a substantial presence in this area. It makes total sense for the town to own this property at this price, and the Finance Committee is unanimous in supporting this article. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Oh, Capital Budget Committee.
Favorable action.
Favorable action by Capital Budget. Okay.
Mike Bradford, 28 Church Street. I just have a few facts here. We're talking about a building that was built in 1800. It's 271 years old. It's on a quarter of an acre land. Has no sprinkler system. The assessment in 2016 was $469,800. And this year's assessment is $220,200. The original building was purchased for $140,000, and it's a post and beam construction. It was an addition in the 1950s of the sacristy and the altar to the rear. I just want to know why the town would want to buy another old building. I mean, we bought one for $80,000 last year, tore it down, put up a parking lot. I mean, it's going to take a lot of money to do anything with this building. Sprinkler system alone is going to cost money. There's no insulation in this building, and as I said, it's 217 years old.
Mr. Fung.
Mr. Moderator, if I may, it's one of the things we're elected to do is to bring forth to the voters opportunities that are available to the town. As we all know, the downtown area is the crux of the village you live in, the town you live in. Your assessed property values are determined by what people see when they go down your main street. I'd ask you to think right now what you see when you look at the central area of Upton. Now, we have opportunities to move it forward. Everybody knows in 5 months I won't be part of this process, but I certainly believe in it. We will have an opportunity to take the gateway, the main part of that town, downtown area, and start a revitalization for the town. Everybody talks about what's the value of the building. It may be worth more money torn down. I don't know. It may have no value in its present situation, but where it's located, in the center of our town, the opportunity to take that and expand and develop a downtown area that we can be proud of has to start somewhere. Now, $152,000, $187,000 sounds like an awful lot of money, but when you put it in concept to what the $25 million budget for this town and where we've appropriated monies for other things, I don't want to be the grim reaper of the past, but 12 to 14 years ago, everybody had an opportunity in another case. And I remember standing on this floor and saying it's about control. We own it, we control it. And now there's a railroad there. And I know that didn't make a lot of people happy. So we have a chance to take control of something so that when, with our new town manager and our government, we have a chance to move that center of our community forward. And we need to get this land to do it. Because if we don't, we cast up, and it's going to be real hard to develop that area with that land not in the town's control.
Any further discussion? Mrs.
I'll do it like this.
There you go. That's good.
Where there's a way, there's a way. I went to Wednesday night's meeting. That was very helpful. Very helpful. And of course, I was the only one that thought I was there because it was a chance to listen and then to ask questions. And I sensed the meeting was coming to an end. And I stood up, I said, can I ask you questions? And it was said, well, we weren't really here to take questions tonight. And I felt, well, come on here. You did the right thing. You again were courteous to me. And Kelly came around. She had a picture on her computer, which made a world of difference to me. And I'm sitting back there and I'm listening. And it sounds like we're getting ready to vote on the $187,000 to buy the church property. I just want to make sure that before we get to that point, you do the wonderful job of sharing with all these people that didn't show up last Wednesday night, giving us the indication of a lot of the stuff that you all know because you had your heads to it. It's like all the other things. You are the people that give up your free time, your time with your family, you're dedicated to Upton. I don't do that, you do that. And you come up with some good plans, but so much of the time, it's like I'm sensing right now, the people don't get a chance to know the whole story behind the wish of wanting to do this. So I'm hoping you're going to do that before we vote.
So why don't you just take a couple of minutes and sort of summarize what that night was?
What the previous speaker is speaking to is we had discussion the other night, we had the financial boards together. the dilemma we have, legally, I cannot stand here and talk to you about any discussions we've had with other parties for that property. I can't do it, because, well, council's sitting right there, she's watching. But we cannot get into the discussion. I can tell you there is a future plan, there are ideas and objectives that the town wants. Bear in mind that if the town buys this building, any future action on that property needs to come through town meeting. So it's not like you're giving all the authority to the Board of Selectmen or the town manager. If the town wants to move or change that property, it has to come back to you. And any further activity has to come to the town. I'm dodging it because I have to. I'd love nothing more than to put up a big slide and show you what potential is.
All right, anything else? Yeah.
Ken Apple, 35 Pleasant Street. I was at the last town meeting, and there was a lot of talk on this when they were appropriating the $35,000 to investigate it. My concern is one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a deed restriction on this property, so whoever owns it has to keep the general appearance of the building and the property as it is. Am I correct in that, or?
No, that's not.
Well,
That's what was talked about last meeting.
okay, so fair question. It doesn't sound like that's the case. Okay.
My other concern is some of the property, some of the ideas you're talking about, maybe we could put the library in it. My question would be, why would we take the library out of one old church and spend the money to put it in another old church?
Well, no, it's, well, that's, okay.
And I guess my final...
Because there are some folks in town here who went to that library when it was a church, so.
Yes.
Okay.
And my final concern, I guess, is I'm not that concerned about the $187,000 tonight. My concern is when we finally do decide to do something, we just, like you said, spent $7 million renovating the town hall. How many millions of dollars are we going to have to spend in 3-4 years from now when we decide what to do with this, that we're going to have to spend to bring this building up to code? We're not talking $187,000, we're talking millions down the road to renovate this building and do whatever we need to do with it.
Sure, that's a great point. So if you look at what we're asking for tonight, we're asking for $152,000 from free cash. And as important, if not more important, we're asking to transfer the $35,000 that was appropriated at the 2017 annual town meeting for the feasibility study. Therefore, in our minds, we have no intentions on conducting a feasibility study to renovate or rehabilitate that building.
Okay. So, okay,
when we buy this property, I assume that it will be insured under our insurance policy, and will the insurance policy have stipulations that we have to update it right away in order to get insurance on the property?
yeah, what happens with an old building that you have insurance on, that like, nobody lives in it?
Right, so, anticipating questions like this would come up, you can see from on the other costs, we've already worked with our insurer, and we know it's gonna cost approximately $1,700 thereabouts, to provide insurance for this while the town maintains it.
Travis Sachavati, 2 Shore Drive. My curiosity is a couple things. One, right now, this property is supposed to be estimated at $250,000. That roughly brings what? At the current tax rate of $18 per thousand, $4,500 roughly a year as income. If we were to buy this, we'd lose income. I'm also wondering on why we're looking at a property we don't have a need for, don't have a vision for, and how much of the town we already need. We have a town hall, we have police station, we have fire station, we have library. I mean, I'm looking at other towns around, and I don't see a void needing to be filled by this very, very small piece of property that I know was stated was next to a parking lot, but it's not. You gotta go over the river and through the woods, literally, to get to the parking lot. So it just seems like a waste of money to me, the loss of tax income.
Again, I have to be careful what I say. If future plans could be realized, the property valuation in that area could be in excess of $10 million. And then your tax revenue stream would go up significantly. But we are looking at all future options.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
As I've said in other town meetings, when the town acquires a piece of property, that parcel comes off the tax roll. But the tax money that you derived from that is built into the levy limit. So, the money that you get from that property, you still get. Everybody else just pays a little bit more. The levy limit is established. The only way you change the levy limit is a vote override, underride, or your 2.5% every year. Because a property comes off the tax rolls, you do not lose the tax revenue that was generated by that property.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
How many people here, raise your hand, if you know what they know about what their ideas are for going forward, if we do purchase it? Okay, I know. And and not everybody else doesn't know. And when I read this article, I said, no way, we're not buying that church. But I talked to some people in town that are knowledgeable. They shared with me a little bit here and a little bit there. I went Wednesday night, like I said, the finance committee was there, the board of selectmen, planning board, I think was there, I don't know how many people were there. And I said to Kelly, when she showed me what she had on her computer, Kelly, the people in town need to see this. And her answer to me was, no, because this is not exactly what it might be. It might be completely different, it might be this. Whatever it was like an idea. When I saw that idea, it changed everything for me. Because there's a whole lot more to this story. Unless I don't get it right. But the way I got it, there's a whole lot more to this story that's good for us to get this. And I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to betray what I happen to be lucky enough to hear. But believe me, this is not really to just, the warrant article is to just vote to buy it. But there's a brilliant idea behind it. And the Henderson people, when they wanted to do their development down at the railroad station, they were going to close the pit, they were going to do this, they were going to do that, and we voted it down because we thought, no, we don't want to buy it, we don't have the money for it. We missed the vote there. This is like a small, similar thing. As I understand it, and I took the time to get my little fanny out there and go ask questions. So if you want to trust me, I don't know, but it's a good idea.
Brett Simus, Barber's Path. So there's a couple things I just wanted to share. The first is the fact that this building and property sold for $140,000 2 years ago. It's assessed at $469,800. The land is worth $104,700. The building is $364,100. So, clearly the price based on the assessed value is a very good price. It's 2 times, or it's $60,000 more, $40,000 more than it was 2 years ago. That said, those are some sort of technical details. This is a critical part of our downtown area, and the seeming shroud of secrecy that surrounds some of these kinds of decisions, to me, I don't understand it. Maybe there's legal reasons, but my lawyer's not here. So a couple of things that I'm aware of and want to share. One is, this is one piece of 2 or 3 properties right in that downtown area that could be part of a downtown revitalization. The options for that downtown revitalization includes things like a mixed-use development, a park, all different things, right? The 2005 master plan talked about, and that's a broad survey of town, not the 150 people that show up to a town meeting. That's a very broad survey of town. People wanted a pedestrian-friendly downtown area, a more pedestrian-friendly common area, and this is our opportunity to deliver that to the townspeople. So whatever people may think, in 2005 at least, that's what the master plan says the town and the community wants. So the vision for that land is important to share with people so they can make an informed decision about spending $187,000 now for what would ultimately become part of a revitalized downtown area, that they would have full input and discretion at choosing what's done, whether it's a mixed-use development, whether it's a park, whether it's refurbishing the church, whether it's knocking it down, etc. The library doesn't want the building, the senior center, maybe they want the building, but the fact is there's a lot of potential for this downtown area. We get one shot at this. We're talking about $187,000 for investing in what's going to be around the center of this town for the next 100 years. So just think about the vision, think about what we can do over the long term, and think about the small investment that we're going to make at this point. Thank you.
Dan Lazarus, 10 Farrar Road. I echo last before about the vehicle of getting that done within our own government structure, boards and committees to share good ideas and the excitement part of it, because I think that's really what's missing. I think the shroud of secrecy, as was mentioned, I think does leave people unsettled, but I think most people do want to see good opportunities.
So it's challenging to talk about this because we work in the public sector, and so we have to abide by procurement law and other bidding types of laws that prevent us to talk about some of the conversations that we have had with developers around downtown revitalization. But what I can say is that a lot of the sentiments that were shared today, we're carrying, and we're having those conversations on a regular basis. The church that we're talking about tonight is going to unlock the downtown area, in my mind. This is a huge opportunity to rethink and to reimagine what our downtown core can look like and what we can offer our children in years to come. So I ask for your vote today because, again, there are good things to come, and we're in active negotiations.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Sorry, one quick question. Once again, Travis Etcheverry, 2 Shore Drive. I just heard that the property value on that building itself, I don't know what time it was, 2005?
$364,100, that's on the assessed value right now.
300?
Just on the buildings.
Just the building itself?
The total value, assessed value is $469,800.
469,800.
It looks like it's caving in.
This is the assessed value off the town.
Those are just facts.
Okay, that's the facts. Okay, that's what I was asking. You pay $140,000 for it, and it's supposed to be assessing it over $250,000. Something real value.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Goodale, 16th Thayer Street. I talked about this article in favor the last time we talked about it in town meeting at $35,000, and the fact that we're all part of a 20-some-odd million-dollar corporation, and big corporations make decisions like this from time to time, and they make investments in the hopes of opening doors to opportunity, and so $187,000 is a lot of money, but I think that as far as what this project looks like is anybody's imagination, and I think that's a big piece of what we're talking about here tonight. There isn't much to be said for the downtown area other than we have a brand new town hall that's worth $7 million, which was debated here as well. And I think if you see the end product that ultimately became the town hall, there's a lot to be proud of, and that could spread through the downtown area. To me, at this point, $187,000 has taken a leap of faith in that we're going to continue these discussions, as Chairman Fleming said, come back to town meeting and talk some more. But it's a small investment right now, and the likelihood is that that investment and opportunity at $187,000 will come back to the town. To Mr. Flaherty's point, I'm not so concerned from a property owner or taxpayer here in town that we're going to lose $4,500 in taxable revenue. We're very fortunate in this town that we still have new growth, and we're expecting at the fire department new $500,000 houses on a weekly basis. So I don't think that's much of an issue from my concern. I'm speaking for myself. But I think if you're willing to make $187,000 in an investment, and you use your imagination, I think down the road, as was mentioned for our children, there may be a whole new town hall, a whole new downtown area to be proud of. So I think it's an inexpensive investment to be able to potentially have some vision and revitalize that downtown area. Thank you.
Yeah, just a point of clarification on the taxes. The 2017 assessment is $90,700 on the land value and $128,600 on the building and $900 on an outbuilding, which is a total of $220,200. This is taken right off the town website. Anybody can access it.
Thank you.
Jerry O'Charzak, 39 Mechanic Street, and a member of the Houston Local Commission about 6 years ago. At that point in time, a demolition delay bylaw was passed. It's on the national. It's on the National Register. Okay. There's a lot of ways to look at this. And I have a question to Mr. Moderator, to whoever on the board up there would like to answer. We're not just talking the church here, from what I've heard. We're talking that strip mall next door and possibly farther down the street. Is that true, or can you answer that in this session?
Cannot answer that.
Well, that to me says there's a hole. I'm not saying the downtown does not need to be developed. It would be nice. But if we can't get a picture as a citizen group, there's a bunch of them here, we need a few more facts here. Look at the town here. Look at the occupations of people here. We have more talent in this room. You can throw a rock. We can establish good committees to look at these things in depth. That church is in a hole. There's a river behind it. I said, the Concom can probably back me up and say it's probably in a floodplain, even though it's a little stream. If we have high waters, I remember the mid-50s when we had back-to-back hurricanes around here with flooding. That place is going to go under. And there's no room down there. So I'm just going to leave it for you guys to, fill us in on things we really haven't heard, and I'd like to hear some answers. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Moderator, the only thing I can do is ask you to envision what would it be like in 5 years if you had downtown area reaping and had $10 million worth of inventory down there that's bringing taxes to the town. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Roberts.
The church as it stands is a white elephant, and it's a question of who controls that beast. I've gone back and forth on it, and I have to admit, in the end, I'd say it's better if the town controls that beast, because if somebody else controls it, something may come in there that we don't want to see. And if we own it, then perhaps things can grow around it and make the center of our town better.
Bear with me for a second.
Yeah.
Over the past 30 years, we've sat in this room and we've made decisions on risks, like a new high school that we set in, or a police department that we took a risk on, or a fire station that we've taken a risk on, or, let's see, water source. 3 water sources, and a DPW building that we took a risk on, based on the advice of the Board of Selectmen that we elected. I think at this point in time, what we hear, without hearing, is that there's a future for that section of town, and the first step is to pick up the church. And I think what we need to do is look down the road and say, gee, that's a risk, but maybe it's a risk that we can afford to take. And I support this. Thank you.
Marcia Kaslowski, 10 Whitney Lane. I just wanted to say that originally I was against buying the church because I saw it as a money pit.
Can't hear.
Sorry. Originally I was against buying the church because I saw it as a money pit, but I went to that meeting that we can't talk about. I'll tell you, I'm very excited because if the plans go as discussed, it'd be a wonderful revenue generating investment.
Guess I missed an exciting meeting.
I guess I did too. Walter Ramsey, 13 Grove Street. I can see the church from my house. I just have a question. You know, when we keep going back and forth about this, and you keep telling us you can't say. We go and we buy things, we invest, and then sometimes it hurts us. I get that. Can you just tell me, because you're asking me to vote blindly, trust you, okay? Can you answer me one question? Are you going to come back to me and ask me to support a $7 million reinvestment into reinvesting that church?
Mr. Moderator, I would say myself, no. Never do that. If that's not clear enough, I'll repeat it. I would never do that.
You're not going to come back to me and ask you to reinvest in.
I wouldn't ask you for half of that.
Well,
To be specific. Yes.
Okay, that's a fair point, yeah. Finance Committee would support either.
I would be a no on that as well, for whatever happens.
And he'll still be here in a year or so.
You can't tell me anything else. At least that makes me feel better.
Okay, sure. There's a.
Can I just follow up on that? Keeping in mind that I was part of the feasibility committee with the $35,000 that was appropriated. Due to state laws, we weren't able to expend those monies. So keeping that in mind, that this motion is asking for the $35,000 to go toward the purchase price, in order to even come back to town meeting to ask if we should renovate the church, you would need to first give us money to study it. So I think that makes it clear that we can't come back and ask you for renovation to renovate it, or $7 million to renovate it, because we have no way to study it at this point, no funds.
Hi, Deb, Lazarus, 10 Farm Road. So I have a couple questions. One is, we did vote to that $35,000 to do a feasibility study, and if that was done, we should have more information. I know it wasn't done, so that's why. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, and I'm kind of sitting on the fence here, if we all had more information, which apparently you can't share, it would be helpful. And it sounds like there was another meeting that not everybody, I think I left that meeting, darn it. But I'm wondering, is there any downside to holding this to the annual town meeting and giving us the next several months of trying to get the word out to the public of what it is, and give us some ideas of what the plans are?
The fair question.
Mr. Moderator, first, I'd just like to clarify something. I know it's almost now we're joking about it, but it is the concept of how this property will be used is something that the town is looking at all legal means as to how to be able to develop this property in the downtown. The discussion, and it's not a secret, that's not a secret. We're in the process, though, of looking at how best to look at that from a legal perspective. My understanding is that there would be a negative implication for trying to put this off until the spring as well.
I'm going to help move it.
Oh, God. There's been a motion to move it. There's been a motion, so Mr. Andrew, are you still going to have a motion to move the question?
I can answer no.
Because there's maybe somebody who maybe could help us.
I'll be kind and let the young lady go for it.
Oh,
I'll get back at the end of the line.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leanne Maloney. I live at 10 North Main Street in Upton. I am one of the owners of Upton Crossings LLC, which is the owner of the property in question. As to whether this can be held to town meeting, unfortunately, due to the considerable carrying cost for us holding this building, which we have held since December of last year at the Board of Selectmen's request, we can no longer hold on to this building. We can no longer continue to pay the cost. So if this does not go forward, we will move forward with whatever plans we can come up with to either develop the property ourselves or to sell it. Unfortunately, we can no longer financially carry this building, and it will go on the market.
Looks like there may be one more, and then,
If he's the last one, you don't need me.
there you go.
Jim Floyd, 10 Henry's Path, resident of Upton, 22 and a half years. Also the person that wrote a letter to the editor of the Town Crier last May that said, why do we need this building in the first place? I was adamant against it. I'm very surprised myself to be up here tonight to say I'm 100% for it now. I wasn't at the secret meeting the other night. But I am somewhat privy to what the overall game plan is here. To quote Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, I've come to believe if you build it, they will come. I've raised 3 children in this town, and the only thing that I lament about this town is there's just darn nothing to do most nights. There's no place to go. That's not a knock on some of the places we do have to go, by the way. But for what I know, I am afraid of the cost of what it's going to take to do whatever we need to do to this building. Let's not kid each other with ADA compliance and everything else. It's a tear down. We're buying a lot, but we're putting a stake in the ground here. And we are looking to take a leap of faith that would essentially say that we believe that the people up here are going to operate in our best interest, and that they are going to look to revitalize downtown. And revitalizing downtown will have a ripple effect, and will revitalize Upton. We've needed a commercial tax base for forever. And the only other thing from a fiscal perspective that I would say is that somebody mentioned the $4,500 we might lose in taxes. If we make the downtown worth $10 million, I'm a writer, not a mathematician, but somebody else can figure out whether or not we're adding $100 or $150 or $175,000 to the tax rolls. So again, in a great level of surprise, I just want to get up and say I will believe in this table enough based on what I know and say I would like to endorse it.
Okay, thank you. We kind of
My talks along the line got a lot longer behind me.
Well, let's see. Gotta kind of, yeah.
I won't take long.
Sure.
I can't let us go without speaking. I've been in the town for 18 years. We have needed a downtown for 18 years. My first drive through town, I couldn't believe there wasn't a downtown to Upton. So I can't let this go. We're buying property. I think you should not focus on how much money it's going to cost to revitalize the church. I think that the church is not necessarily in this equation. So we are buying land to develop for the future of Upton and creating a downtown. Oh, I didn't say who I was. Sorry. She knows who I am.
All right, good.
Okay. Picture the railroad the way it is. I don't know, but I don't think we get much income from the railroad. Maybe we do and I don't know. Does anybody here want to raise their hand and say we get a lot?
Move along.
Okay. Have you been up to the center of Hopkinton, to Lumber Street? There used to be the Golden Spoon on the corner. Now there's a Starbucks. The Golden Spoon is kind of across the street, way in the back. There's a big restaurant there. There are doctors' offices there. And then way in the back of that is a huge development of apartments. It's beautiful. There's plenty of income from all of that going, maybe just taxes, I don't know, I'm not knowledgeable on this, to Hopkinton. Right now we have a church doing nothing. We have some other things in the center of town. It's not very attractive. And we're always saying we want, two things we're concerned about tonight. We don't want to buy the church and then pour money into it, and pour money into it, and pour money into it. That's not what their plan and idea is. We're buying the church, but we're not going to be pouring money into it. Somebody else is. And the only other thing I want to say is we're always complaining, our tax rate is too high, we don't have any businesses, we don't have any industry. This might be smaller than what Henderson would have done or what even Hopkinton has done, but it's going to be a start, it's going to be a good start. Believe me, there's more positives to this than negatives.
Thank you. Ms. Randall? Yes.
Is there a need for you to move the question? The
Uh,
line's up. Do it anyways. I move the question and will not be convinced otherwise.
Thank you very much. There's a second. So we all know what that means. All those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye. Aye. No, motion carries unanimously. We will move the question. So, all right. Now, all kidding aside, let's make sure we're clear on this. The yes vote on this means you want to purchase the property downtown that used to be the Catholic Church. A no vote on this means you do not want to purchase the property. It does require a 2/3 majority vote, okay? So, any questions? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No! The motion carries by a 2/3 majority vote. Article 21. Okay. Mr. Lazar? Folks, stick around, we still got one more to go. Go ahead, read it.
Dan Lazars, Center Road, Town Manager, Act Committee, Article 21. I move that the town revoke to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court to amend various sections of Chapter 391 of the Acts of 2008 and Act establishing the office of the Town Manager in the Town of Upton. As written in the 2007 Special Town Meeting warrant, with striking text to be deleted and underlying text to be inserted, provided, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the Board of Selectmen approve amendments to the bill before enacted by the General Court, and provided further that the Board of Selectmen is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition.
Moved and seconded. What I would like, I will open up for questions, but before we open up for questions, if there was someone who could just give us a quick minute, what do the changes mean in a brief manner? Okay, someone do that, then we can open up for questions.
Mr. Moderator, they are pretty, I hope you can hear me. They are consistent with the previous practices. The committee met and and through their deliberations, one of their recommendations through this article was that before any town manager is hired, there is a screening committee, which we are in full agreement with. There was also part of the article was that there should be a review every 5 years, the Town Manager Act, which we are in agreement with. So basically, the Board of Selectmen is in agreement with not only the language changes, but the two issues brought forward in this article.
And there's one other third one with regard to elected office versus Board of Selectmen.
Yes, correct.
So
To open up for elected office, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And Section 2 is basically just a clerical thing, and Section 3 is one other clarification that's important to point that we have made a provision in Section 3 to have essentially only a Board of Selectmen be limitation to being a potential future town manager is related to elected officials in town.
Okay. Great. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Roberts?
I'm talking too much tonight.
No, you're doing fine. Thank you.
I was chairman of the original town meeting assessment committee who developed the original law. I reviewed this law, and it appears the changes appear consistent with the previous law, and I think it should be passed.
Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, this is requiring majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Before I accept the motion to adjourn, just give us a minute, folks. So it's about 10:20. It seems like it was a long night, but I got to be honest with you, we got a lot of things done. We had a lot of very important things to talk about, and while sometimes it may seem like the discussion kind of went on and on, keep in mind, having the right to get up and speak in front of the residents and listening to them, this doesn't happen hardly anywhere in the world, let alone anywhere in the country. It's really a Massachusetts, New England thing. So, I know it was a long night, but we did some real important things here, so thank you all for coming, I appreciate that. Mr. Robertson.
Well, I'll take a second. I'd like to congratulate the moderator, who did a very good job tonight. But I'd also like to congratulate all the members who came tonight for the town meeting. They did a job. It was like an old-fashioned town meeting. Ideas were shared and decisions were made.
So hurry up.
Okay. I move that we dissolve the warrant and adjourn the meeting.
So second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, folks.